American TV series, starting to profit from young Sheldon. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Hospital. George was being rescued, and it was not a good idea for a group of people to stay at the door of the intensive care unit. After Mike comforted Mary for a few words, he went to the information desk. If he remembered correctly, George's father would die of a heart attack when Sheldon was 15 years old. Mike wanted to check the other party's medical records to see if there was a way to remedy the situation. After all, the Cooper family had taken good care of him during this period. Moreover, from a personal emotional point of view, Mike also thought that George was a very good person. When he came to the information desk, a young nurse was on duty. After Mike explained his purpose, he easily got George's medical records from her. Looking at the values on the form, Mike could only preliminarily see that George's blood pressure, blood sugar, and blood lipids were all a little high. As for other problems, it was a little difficult for non-professionals to understand. Hello, excuse me, can I ask the specific cause of the disease in this medical record? Mike could only turn to the nurse behind the counter for help. The nurse had long noticed that Mike was an overly handsome guy. Hearing the question, she came over enthusiastically, picked up the medical record, and studied it carefully, and said, "Mr. George's disease is an acquired heart disease. There are two causes, look here." She deliberately moved closer, pointed to a large paragraph of professional terms on the medical record, and explained. One is caused by mental stress. Long-term mental stress, anxiety, and irritability will increase the possibility of heart disease. The other may be caused by bad living habits, high fat, high salt, and high sugar food intake. In addition, lack of exercise, alcoholism, taking contraband, obesity, etc. will induce metabolic imbalance and affect the normal functioning of blood vessels. Thinking of George's lazy personality and alcoholism, Mike quickly determined that the cause of his illness was most likely the second case. Now that the cause has been found, more control in the future should be helpful to his body. Thank you for your answer. Mike took the medical record and was about to leave. Wait, the little nurse called Mike and put a small card in his hand and said with an ambiguous look, "This is my business card. You can come to me if you have anything in the future." This little nurse has a uniform bonus, which can indeed arouse the interest of some people. But her figure and appearance are very ordinary, far inferior to Karen and Katie. Mike could only apologize, nodded perfunctorily, and left quickly. When he returned to the door of the intensive care unit again, George's operation had been successfully completed, and a doctor was telling Mary about the situation. George is out of danger, and if he wants, he can be discharged tonight. The Cooper family, who got the good news, hugged each other excitedly. "Where did you go just now?" Grandma Connie asked casually when she saw Mike appear. Without waiting for Mike to answer, she hugged him gratefully and shared the joy. "That's great. George is fine now." Little George and Missy also came over to hug Mike like a family. "Okay, let's go in and see George." Mary wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and sorted out her emotions. Just as the family was about to enter the ward to visit George, Missy looked back and forth and suddenly asked, "Where is Sheldon?" Only then did Mary and Grandma Connie realize that they had been too worried about George before and had not noticed where little Sheldon had gone. When the two were about to worry again, Mike said, "I know where Sheldon is. You go visit George first, and I'll bring him over now." In the chapel of the hospital, a small figure stood in front of the mural with white light, praying devoutly. Little Sheldon prayed that, if George's father could recover this time, he promised that he would never question the existence of God again. Mike pushed open the door of the chapel and just saw the scene of little Sheldon bathing in the holy light. Mike was not sure whether God existed, but he, a man with a demon body, walked into the chapel without feeling anything strange. "Sheldon, what are you doing?" Mike asked. "I'm praying, asking God to bless George with peace." Little Sheldon answered truthfully. "Very good, your wish has come true." Mike smiled and told him the good news. "Great." Little Sheldon cheered, and then thanked the God on the mural. "Thank God then. The little guy ran out of the church happily. Intelligence attribute +3. Mike wanted to tell little Sheldon that he should thank the doctor. However, seeing the big light ball in his hand that he had just taken from the other party, Mike also smiled and said, "God bless." Back in the ward, the Cooper family was still immersed in joy until they saw the payment list left by the hospital. The high medical expenses have exceeded the Cooper family's budget. If George continues to stay in the hospital for observation, it will only make the Cooper family's finances worse. Although the Cooper family's quality of life is not low, it all depends on George's salary. As a housewife, Mary has no extra income. And even if George's salary is considerable, it is just the same as the living expenses of a family of 5. Read the correct version in 16 to 9 book 1 bar. George took the bill and said, "I feel fine now. Let's go home." The 3 children in the ward could not understand the adults' troubles. When they heard George say that he was fine, they smiled again. Mary looked at her husband's pale face and was still a little worried. Seeing this, Grandma Connie said that she could pay part of his medical expenses to make up for her guilt towards George. Mike also indicated that he still had some savings and could take out $5,000 to support the Cooper family. "Thank you, I'm really fine." After thanking the 2, George said cheerfully, "With that money, you might as well buy me a few more bottles of beer. George will be fine. I have reached a settlement with God." Little Sheldon also proudly guaranteed at this time. Through George's story, little Sheldon thought that he had established a connection with God. Of course, what little Sheldon said could only be a joke in the eyes of adults. In the end, at George's insistence, he left the hospital that night and returned to his warm little home. The next day, when Mike continued to exercise in the yard, seeing little Sheldon, wearing a white dress with a Christian symbol, walking over, "Grandma Mike, Connie, Mom wants you to come over for dinner." Little Sheldon called out from the door, "Oh, who is this?" Grandma Connie walked out of the house, and after seeing little Sheldon's clothes, she was surprised and said, "Grandma's little cookie, why is he dressed like this?" A nickname, Little Cookie, can also be translated as Little Cookie. Little Sheldon was a little proud and said seriously, "This dress is my respect for God. Have you joined Christianity?" Grandma Connie felt interesting and asked with a smile, "No, I believe in science." Little Sheldon explained seriously, "I dressed like this just to thank God for blessing George." This answer is very funny and sensible to Sheldon. As for Grandma Connie, she actually doesn't care whether little Sheldon really believes in religion. She only values little Sheldon as a family member, and she supports him no matter what decision he makes. Chapter 27 Bad God. Mike went back to his room to wash up a bit and came out just in time to catch up with Grandma Connie and little Sheldon and went to the Cooper family together. Compared to the miserable last night, the atmosphere at the Cooper family today was much more cheerful. Missy was wearing a flowery dress and running around the house. Little George was sitting in front of the TV excitedly, studying the disc. In the dining room, Mary also prepared a table of sumptuous lunch. "George, you look good today." As soon as Grandma Connie came in, she smiled and greeted George, who was sitting at the head of the dining table. This kind of thing would never have happened before. George was a little surprised to see Grandma Connie smiling at him, but he also responded enthusiastically, "Thanks to you, I feel much better." Although George looks gentle and kind now, he was a bad boy when he was young, and he married Mary because he had little George first. Because of these reasons, Grandma Connie had always disliked George before. Now, the conflicts between the two seemed to have disappeared because of George's serious illness. At this time, little Sheldon began to seek a sense of existence, and I prayed to God seriously so that George could recover safely. "Yes, my little biscuits are the best." Grandma Connie smiled and touched little Sheldon's head, not stingy with her praise. On the side, Missy saw Mike's arrival and calmed down, sitting next to him at the dining table like a lady. Seeing the happy scene of the family, Mary smiled. "Okay, let's pray before dinner and thank God for everything he has given us." This time, little Sheldon prayed more seriously than any other time before. Mike vaguely heard his whisper, "Almighty God, please bless our family with good health." Well, and Mike, please don't throw away Mrs. Socks, and please bless little George to take a bath every day. He seemed to regard God as an omnipotent wishing machine. Amen. As Mary finished praying, little Sheldon's wish in his heart had not yet been expressed. Come and try my egg feast. Mary promoted the egg delicacy she developed to everyone. Cheese and egg pancakes, bacon, and egg rolls, potato sandwich eggs. It must be said that Mary's cooking skills are really good, except for the simple ingredients. The atmosphere at the Cooper family's table is very relaxed, and there is no requirement, do not talk, while eating or sleeping. Seeing George habitually opening a bottle of beer again, Mike took out his medical record from his pocket and persuaded him, George, your medical report shows that your blood pressure, blood lipids, and blood sugar are all high. You should quit drinking and eat less greasy food. Seeing that Mike was serious, Mary took the medical record and looked at the dense medical terms on it. She didn't understand it for a while and could only wonder, is it really that serious? Of course, it's a little more serious than you think. Mike suggested, if you want to prevent the disease from recurring, George had better do some moderate outdoor exercise and lose weight. As the person involved, George had a deep understanding of the danger of yesterday. However, he touched his increasingly bulging belly, looked at the delicious ice beer at hand, and his face was a little tangled. It is indeed difficult to suddenly change your living habits after living a comfortable and easy life. George, if you want, you can exercise with me in the future. Of course, you only need a slight amount of exercise. Mike saw that the other party was embarrassed and proposed again. George looked at the beer at hand, still a little reluctant. Dad, don't worry, I have reached an agreement with God, and he will bless you with good health. Little Sheldon, wearing white believer's clothes, seemed to feel the call of the Lord at this moment. Thank you, Shelley. George smiled and was comforted. After estimating it, he let go of the cold beer at hand. Mary, who knew her husband's character, also persuaded, George, we all know that proper exercise is good for your body. You can adapt slowly, and we believe in you. Okay, isn't it just quitting drinking and outdoor exercise? I will consider it. George's mood compromised slightly. Although George has not made a clear guarantee, it is a good start. Next, everyone enjoyed the egg dinner with peace of mind. Mike was eating, and suddenly found that his stomach was a little uncomfortable. Because of his demon body, he rarely gets sick. Thinking of his own digestive system, which is stronger than that of ordinary people, he quickly attributed the reason to the food on the table. Wait a minute, don't eat. There's something wrong with the food, Mike said while enduring the stomach ache. He has a demon body, so a little bit of food poisoning is not a problem, and he will be fine after a while. But the Cooper family are all ordinary people. If they eat poisonous food, they will probably feel uncomfortable for a long time. Mike doesn't want to gamble on that probability. What's wrong, Mike? I handle the ingredients myself. There won't be any problem. Mary didn't realize the seriousness of the matter. She turned to look at her husband. By the way, George, did you buy the big basket of eggs in the kitchen? No. George shook his head and explained. The eggs were a gift from Billy, the kid next door, yesterday at noon. You know, they have a small chicken farm, and they can't finish eating all the eggs. Read the correct version in the 16:9 book bar. There is no urban planning where little Sheldon lives. There are several neighbors next to him, and Billy's family is one of them. Billy is a fat boy who is about the same age as little Sheldon. He often holds his chickens to tease little Sheldon. And little fat Billy has some feelings for the beautiful and cute Missy, so he will send some small gifts to the Cooper family from time to time. Seeing that the topic has gone to one side, Grandma Connie shouted, listen to Mike, don't eat then. She looked at Mike and said with concern, Mike, where are you feeling uncomfortable? Do you want Grandma to take you to the hospital? Mike shook his head, and the cramps in his stomach had eased a little. He said, I'm not sure, but these foods may have problems. While he was talking, little George, who had been eating quietly, suddenly covered his stomach. His face turned pale, and sweat broke out. Then, like a virus spreading, the other people at the table covered their stomachs one by one, and their faces became ugly. Damn, it should be that the eggs Billy sent are expired. George suffered a lot last night, and now his reaction is particularly intense. No, Mike, Call an ambulance. Grandma Connie was also holding her stomach at this moment, looking uncomfortable. Seeing someone start to vomit, the situation was getting worse and worse. Mike hurriedly said, "It's too late. I'll go drive. You guys squeeze in. I'll take you to the hospital. Drive my car. There's more space." George endured the dizziness and handed the car keys to Mike. Then, he supported his family and walked out. How could this happen? God clearly promised me that he would bless my family with peace. Little Sheldon was also very uncomfortable now, but compared to the physical abnormality, he was more angry that God had betrayed the covenant. "Shelly, what are you waiting for? Come here quickly." George stood at the door and turned back to call his little son. "Wait." Little Sheldon took off his white believer's clothes and complained, "I don't believe in God anymore. Even if he exists, he must be a bad guy." Mike started the car and came back just in time to see that little Sheldon was almost unable to stand and was still mumbling. Because the blow he suffered this time was too great, a ball of attribute light appeared on his body. Intelligence attribute +2. God bless you. Mike muttered to himself, picked up the light ball, picked up little Sheldon and ran out. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Fatal Breakfast. The Cooper family seemed to have a severe reaction to the poisoning, but after arriving at the hospital and being identified by the emergency department doctor, it was determined that they were all only suffering from mild food poisoning. This was good news. At least a few people didn't have to suffer the pain of gastric lavage and enema. After a moment of relief, Grandma Connie looked at Mike standing at the back and said, "Mike, come over and let the doctor take a look." The matter was urgent before, and Mike behaved very normally, so the Cooper family almost ignored the fact that he had eaten poisonous eggs. In fact, Mike's body, after a period of self-adjustment, has long been fine. However, seeing everyone's concerned expressions, he still sat in front of the doctor honestly. After the emergency doctor checked Mike's tongue coating and pupil reaction, he asked in confusion, "Are you sure he also ate something poisonous?" Yes, Mike was the first person to find that there was something wrong with the food. Grandma Connie explained. Others also spoke up to prove it for Grandma. "That's not right." The emergency doctor frowned. "Based on my years of experience, he doesn't have any symptoms of poisoning. On the contrary, he looks healthier than many people." After thinking for a while, the doctor said obscurely, "If you are still worried, I can collect some of his blood and body fluids for further testing." "Thank you, no need." Mike shook his head and refused. Seeing Mike's insistence, the others did not force it. Next, the emergency doctor asked the Cooper family to drink some saline and prescribed them some antibiotics. As the saying goes, illness comes like a mountain falling, and illness goes like pulling a thread. Although the Cooper family felt better after taking the antibiotics prescribed by the doctor, but they spent the rest of the weekend lying in the house. The next morning, Grandma Connie recovered. In order to thank Mike for his help yesterday, she specially prepared a hearty breakfast. "Mike, drink the milk in front of you. It's good for your body," Grandma Connie reminded with a smile. Grandma Connie did not drink alcohol today unexpectedly, and she also held a large glass of milk in her hand. The large amount of protein contained in milk can hinder the body's absorption of toxic substances, so as to achieve mild detoxification effect. Okay, Mike swallowed the pancake in his mouth and drank the milk. Seeing that it was almost time, he said goodbye to Grandma Connie and went out to Cooper's house. Because Grandma Connie was too troublesome, Mike took George's car to go to school in the morning during this period. When they arrived at Cooper's house, their whole family had recovered from yesterday's food poisoning. Mary was in the kitchen, busy preparing lunch for little Sheldon to take away. Seeing Mike coming, she took the time to care. "Mike, have you had breakfast? Do you want some fried sausages?" In the past, when Mike was in a hurry, he would also have breakfast at Cooper's house. "No, I've already eaten," Mike replied, and sat on the sofa in a familiar manner. At the dining table, George had finished his breakfast and was constantly looking at the time and urging the 3 children to eat. Little George was looking for salad dressing all over the table. He felt that the breakfast made by Mary tasted too light. Missy was secretly picking out the peppers from the plate in front of her. She didn't like the taste of peppers. As for little Sheldon, he was the most worry-free at this time. He knew that he was about to miss the class, so he quickly solved the fried sausages in front of him. This messy scene is also a daily routine for the Cooper family every morning. Suddenly, little Sheldon, who was eating breakfast, stood up with his neck covered and a look of horror. "Shelly, what's wrong?" George saw little Sheldon stand up, and he didn't care much at first. It wasn't until little Sheldon couldn't breathe and his face was flushed that George realized that the other party was stuck by the sausage. Then, George panicked and lifted little Sheldon upside down, patting his back constantly. But this rough rescue behavior did not work. Little Sheldon's face became even uglier because of the congestion in his head. "George, try the Heimlich abdominal thrust." Mike noticed the situation here, and seeing that little Sheldon was uncomfortable, he quickly proposed the correct first aid method. George understood, put Sheldon down, strangled his abdomen with his arm, and then gently hit his back. Maybe Sheldon was too nervous, and he failed to spit out the sausage after several attacks. "George, come and help." In a critical situation, Mike hurriedly called for help from George, whose hands were full of ketchup. Because the incident happened suddenly, George and Missy didn't realize that the situation here was not good. They just thought that Sheldon was making trouble again. Hearing Mike's call, George saw that Sheldon's face had turned purple. He ran over and said nervously, "What should I do?" As an older brother, George seemed to dislike Sheldon, but in fact, he cared about his smart brother very much in his heart. "Help stabilize Sheldon's head," Mike commanded. George felt that there was something wrong with Mike's proposal, but he also knew that he was not as smart as the other party. What's more, now is not the time to question. Read the correct version in the 16:9 book bar. So, without thinking too much, George responded, and then stretched out his hands full of ketchup, and approached Sheldon's cheek. This series of actions seemed long, but in fact, they all happened in an instant. Sheldon was on the verge of life and death, but his mind was still very clear. His time seemed to be stretched out, and watching George's dirty hands approaching little by little was a huge torment for him who had misophobia. And as personal subjective time was stretched, this torment was infinitely magnified. No, after struggling, Sheldon finally shouted out in resistance just before George's hand was about to touch him. In this shout, the small sausage stuck in his throat was also spit out smoothly. George grabbed the sausage under pressure, and when he saw Sheldon was saved, he excitedly said, "Hey, I saved your life. No, you should go wash your hands." Sheldon broke free from George's father's hands, adjusted his bow tie, and looked at George's ketchup-stained hands with disgust. It was those hands that made him feel more uncomfortable than death just now. "TSK, it's just ketchup." Seeing that the other party didn't appreciate it, George threw away the whole sausage in his hand, and then deliberately licked the ketchup on his hand, and said proudly, "If it wasn't for Mike's request, I wouldn't bother to pay attention to you." On the other side, George saw that his youngest son was fine, and he seemed to be exhausted, and sat on the chair next to him. When Mary rushed out after hearing the sound, she saw a messy scene in the restaurant. "What happened here?" Mary asked in surprise. "It's okay." George took a breath, dealt with his wife briefly, and sternly stopped the argument between the 2 children. Then, he looked at the time and ordered, "Go and finish your breakfast, we should leave." George obediently returned to the dining table and finished the salad with ketchup in a few bites. And Sheldon looked at the remaining fried sausages on the table and said in fear, "No, they will kill me." Seeing that Sheldon was so disobedient, George frowned and said, "Whatever you want, we should go." After that, he called George and Mike and walked out. Intelligence +2, Mike picked up the light bulb from Sheldon and reminded him, "Are you still going? You're going to be late for class." Little Sheldon had experienced great joy, great sorrow, and life crisis in the past 2 days, but he contributed a lot of intelligence to Mike. In a way, if you want to get more wool, you can't let little Sheldon sit idle. Chapter 29, Plastic Sisters. little Sheldon was delayed for breakfast, and when Mike and the other two arrived in the classroom, they just missed the bell for class. Ingram, the math teacher, passed by little George and looked at the two good students, Mike and little Sheldon, standing at the door with interest, and teased, "Can you tell me why you are late today?" In the eyes of Ms. Ingram, top students like Mike and little Sheldon are generally not late. Especially little Sheldon, with his personality, he should not miss any cultural class. Perhaps it was Ms. Ingram's gentle attitude that triggered the grievance in little Sheldon's heart. He recalled the near-death experience in the morning and said, "Ms. Ingram, I almost choked to death on a sausage this morning, so I missed the class time." Although, little Sheldon said it very sincerely. However, Ms. Ingram could not imagine that someone would be choked by delicious sausages, and even almost choked to death. Subconsciously, she thought the other party was lying. So, Ms. Ingram also asked absurdly, "Sheldon, can you tell me how big the sausage is?" "It's this big." Little Sheldon used his index finger and thumb to gesture a 5 cm length, which was already very scary for him. "It got stuck in my throat at the time, and I couldn't breathe at all." Seeing little Sheldon talking about bizarre things seriously, Ms. Ingram, who had already determined that the other party was lying, couldn't help but be amused. In the classroom, those 15 or 16-year-old classmates, because of little Sheldon's personality, a large number of them disliked little Sheldon. At this moment, seeing little Sheldon's funny performance, they finally got the chance and laughed out loud one by one. The lively scene was so exciting that they wanted to overturn the classroom. Even though little Sheldon had a low EQ, he felt the malice of the teacher and students at this moment. He closed his mouth depressedly and unconsciously took a small step closer to Mike and little George. "Okay, stop laughing." Seeing little Sheldon's embarrassment, Ms. Ingram chose to let him go. Then, the teacher looked at Mike and asked, "What about you, Mike? Why are you late?" At first, the teacher wanted to remain calm. However, maybe the reason for Sheldon's lateness was too funny. Ms. Ingram just kept a serious face for 2 seconds, and then she laughed again. Then she thought she was humorous and said, "Mike, the reason for your lateness is not also because of the sausage." Because of Ingram's joke, the students below laughed again. Mike glanced casually and found that most of the most noisy were boys. "I'm afraid it's because of jealousy." Mike shook his head and ignored them, then replied seriously to Ms. Ingram, "Little George and I were late because it took some time to help Sheldon remove the stuck sausage." Hearing Mike's answer was so outrageous, the laughter in the classroom became louder, and Ingram, the fat math teacher, also laughed and leaned on the desk. "Is it funny?" Mike looked at the students below, and his face gradually became cold. He had never spoken to many people in the class, and they were not that familiar with each other. The repeated laughter was a bit excessive. This was also the first time that the classmates saw Mike angry. Thinking that he had risen in the school in just 2 weeks, many classmates immediately stopped laughing. It had only been a few days since Sam was beaten. Some other boys who had no good eyesight also realized their offense after being deliberately reminded by the girls in the class. At this time, Lina also showed her role as the leader of Mike's support team. She almost connected all the girls in the class. Soon the class quieted down, and Ms. Ingram stopped laughing awkwardly. She looked at Mike's serious look and said in surprise, "Are you serious?" "Of course, I don't need to lie." Mike nodded slightly. "Okay, the teacher misunderstood you." Ms. Ingram had a good personality and admitted her mistake. Then, she asked Mike and the other two to sit back in their seats. Because of the misunderstanding, Sheldon spent the entire math class in depression and did not actively answer questions like before. Since Mike found that he couldn't continue to take advantage of Sheldon in class, he became less active than before. So, the classes this morning seemed very dull. At noon, Mike left George and sat with Lina and the others. The girls at the same table were all key members of Mike's support group. Mike thanked them for what happened in the morning class. On the other side, in the 12th grade dining area, Janice looked at Katie, who had changed her outfit, and gossiped, "How is it, Katie? Did you win, Mike?" Katie wore a red t-shirt today and tied her blonde hair into a ponytail. She looked more confident and capable. Hearing her friend's question, she shook her head in frustration. "No, I feel like I'm missing some opportunities." Thinking of Mike's fiery eyes that day, Katie confirmed that he had her in his heart. She thought that their relationship only needed a suitable opportunity to go further. Then you have to work harder. Boys are visual animals. They are easily attracted by other coquettish and slutty girls. Punk girl Janice seems to be an expert in relationships. She is not as impressive as Katie. The sissy Damien who sat next to her agreed with Janice's opinion. He gestured to Katie. Look over there. Is that Mike? Not far away, in the 11th grade dining area, Mike was talking and laughing with several girls sitting at the same table. A perfect version in the 16-9 book bar. Seeing Katie's thoughts, Janice encouraged, go find him. We support you. Katie picked up the plate, nodded to her two friends, and was about to find Mike. She clearly felt that the other party was interested in her. How come he was involved with a girl in the same class after just one day of not seeing each other? In terms of relationships, anyone can be petty, and Katie is no exception. Katie, be careful of Regina. I heard that she has set her sights on you because of Mike. Damien whispered to Katie's back. At this moment, Katie only had Mike in her eyes. She didn't know if she listened to her friend's reminder. When she walked away, the punk girl Janice continued, I have a feeling that Katie can't beat them at all. Sissy Damien shook his head. You still don't understand men. Katie is so beautiful, there is definitely a chance. It depends on whether she can grasp it. The three girls sitting in the most dazzling seat in the middle of the cafeteria were also talking about Mike. Regina, how is the investigation going on with your confession? Karen, I have inquired. The person who made an appointment with Mike that day was Katie from our class. But I heard that their date didn't go well. Gretchen. Really? That's a good thing. Regina took a look at the way Mike was chatting and laughing with several girls in the 11th grade and said bitterly, how can those little bitches compare to me? And that overconfident country girl. Regina was talking when she felt Karen pulling her clothes. She looked up in dissatisfaction and happened to see the country girl she was talking about passing by. She immediately put on a brilliant smile and said softly, hi, baby. Can we chat? The queen bee was already incredibly charming, and with this deliberate act, not only men, but even women could not resist her charm. Hearing the voice, Katie looked around and behind her blankly and finally pointed at herself and asked, are you calling me? Of course, Katie. Please come and sit down. There was an irresistible charm in Regina's soft voice. I've noticed you a long time ago, Katie. You are so outstanding. After Regina's false compliment, she showed her fangs and invited with a sincere look, Katie, would you like to join our devil body group? Katie had been reminded by Damien that Regina was also interested in Mike. Seeing the other party's charming appearance at this moment, she thought for a while and decided to get into the enemy. Knowing yourself and the enemy, you can win every battle. As for those 11th grade girls, they are still a little tender in terms of body. Katie then pretended to be excited and exclaimed, really? I'm so honored. Then, the two girls hugged each other enthusiastically to celebrate their new friendship. When their cheeks touched, their enthusiastic expressions cooled at the same time. When they faced each other again, they both had bright smiles on their faces. This rapid change of expression was a masterclass. Chapter 30 Girlfriend Rules. In the restaurant, at first glance, there was a harmonious scene. Regina said a few more hypocritical words to Katie, picked up a box of milk, and apologized. Everyone, excuse me for a moment, I have some personal matters to deal with. After that, she made a generous gesture and walked towards Mike. As the school's queen bee, Regina's every move naturally attracted many people's attention. Karen, who stayed where she was, suddenly turned around and asked, Katie, are you familiar with Mike? Katie was also paying attention to Regina's movements and answered casually, it's okay, he is the first friend I made in school. It seems that you have a good relationship. Big wave. Karen smiled and then suddenly asked, do you like him? Who? Mike. Katie's first reaction to this question was to hide her guilty conscience. Then, she looked at Karen's smiling baby face opposite her and considered whether she should reveal some of her true feelings to the other party. Karen's beauty belongs to the angel defeating the devil. She has an outstanding figure, full of temptation, and a cute face. Especially her big lively eyes, which give people a feeling of innocence and beauty. The combination of the two contradictory temperaments makes Karen's beauty not aggressive, but gives people a very comfortable feeling. Compared with Regina's strong aura, Karen looks much easier to approach and more trustworthy. This kind of person is very suitable to be an ally. However, when Katie was still calculating the gains and losses, Karen on the opposite side looked regretful and continued, "It's a pity, Katie. I can see that you like Mike a little, but you may not have a chance in the future." "Why?" Katie widened her eyes and said in surprise. In her heart, she and Mike were only one step away from being together. Now hearing that someone wanted to break them up, Katie was very dissatisfied, and even the look she gave Karen was more unfriendly. Karen, who seemed not to notice the change in atmosphere, kindly explained, "You have joined the Devil Body team, so you must abide by the best friend rules in the team. The first rule of best friend rules, you can never compete with your best friend for a man. Now, Regina has taken action before you. Believe me, Mike will be taken down by her soon." So, Karen's meaning is very clear. If Mike is taken down by Regina, then other people in the Devil Body team will not be able to take advantage of Mike in the future. Therefore, Regina's enthusiastic invitation to Katie to join the Devil Body team was premeditated. Clever Katie figured out the key point as soon as she was reminded. Originally, Katie joined the Devil Body team to spy on the enemy. As a result, she failed to steal the chicken and fell into the trap woven by Regina. This made the girl who had just begun to adapt to campus life a little upset. Fortunately, based on the girl's understanding of Mike, she firmly believed that the other party should not be taken down by Regina. Moreover, there is also a confidence in the girl's own charm. Katie knew that her personality was not very pleasing at this stage, but she had never doubted her own charm. This was why she dared to approach the handsome and excellent Mike before. Besides, in terms of the order of priority, Katie thought that she was in the first place. Katie, who had temporarily gotten rid of her depression, asked, "Karen, can you tell me who came up with the bestie rules?" Regina made it herself. She said that this would avoid conflicts in the team. Karen continued to explain. Sure enough, Katie sneered in her heart and had already regarded Regina as her main opponent. In order to better deal with the opponent in the future, Katie said softly, "Karen, can you tell me more about the content of the bestie rules? Knowing yourself and the enemy, you will never be defeated in 100 battles." "Of course." Karen explained enthusiastically again. The bestie rules of the Devil Body team are very complicated, and there are clear regulations on the words, deeds, and even the clothes of team members. To put it bluntly, this code was customized by Regina alone, and many of the rules are for her own service. Moreover, in order to ensure that the Queen Bee's limelight is not suppressed, other members often need to compromise. For example, if Regina has an activity on the weekend and needs someone to cooperate, then other members must take time out on that day to cooperate with her. It can be said that this bestie code reveals authoritarianism everywhere. Of course, the dictatorship of the Queen Bee is also a good thing for Katie. Where there is oppression, there is resistance. Looking at another member, Gretchen, who was absent-minded and always kept elegant, Katie thought that maybe she could develop the other party into an ally. On the other side, Regina, who deliberately slowed down her pace and had a full aura, also walked in front of Mike. She kept a charming smile and said to the girls at the same table, "Sorry, can you make room for me?" While speaking, she was like a proud queen. Her eyes swept across the audience. Compared with Regina, several 11th grade girls were a little immature. Read the correct version in the 16-9 book and bar. Coupled with Regina's flamboyant behavior, the students in the entire restaurant focused their attention here. Soon, a girl at the same table could not stand the pressure and stood up. It was like a chain reaction. After the first one, the second one followed. Soon, only Mike and Lina, who was sitting next to him, were left at the table. Lina, who was still a novice, also seemed uneasy under Regina's gaze. "I have something to say to Mike in private. Do you want to stay and listen?" Regina's bright and decent smile revealed a hint of teasing. There were empty seats at the table, but the queen could not sit down. Instead, she looked down at the last girl. In contrast, one was elegant and generous, while the other was nervous and her face flushed. If this continues, Lina, who overestimates her own abilities may become the laughing stock of the whole school. Don't underestimate the influence of the queen bee in the school. Mike saw that the situation was not right and said, "Lina, you go first. See you in class." Hearing Mike's words, Lina breathed a sigh of relief. She had made up her mind to protect Mike, but when she really faced the queen bee, she realized how much pressure she had. Okay. See you in the afternoon." Lina blushed and picked up the plate. Finally, she mustered up the courage to glare at the queen bee before leaving the table in a hurry. What an interesting girl. Regina waited until all the girls left before slowly sitting opposite Mike. It seemed that she didn't take those 11th grade girls seriously at all. "What do you want to see me for?" Mike generously admired the charm of the queen bee opposite him, but in his heart he labeled her as having a bad personality. "It's okay, can't I come to you?" The smile on Regina's face became playful. Suddenly, she stood up, leaned close to Mike, and tempted, "Do you want milk?" When Mike was dazzled by the white and the ravines, a box of milk was stuffed into his hand. Regina also deliberately touched the back of Mike's hand in an ambiguous way in front of everyone. This intimate move caused waves of wolf howls in the restaurant. At the back, Katie, who was always paying attention to the movement here, almost bent the fork in her hand and cursed angrily, but she regretted it, and she didn't want to stay here for another second. Seeing Katie leaving angrily, Karen kindly reminded, "Katie, tomorrow is Tuesday, and the girlfriend's code stipulates that we have to wear pink clothes tomorrow." To hell with pink. Katie thought angrily, glanced at Mike in the crowd, and then left the restaurant unwillingly. Chapter 31 Campus Competition. After Katie left, Gretchen, who had not spoken, asked in a low voice, "Why did you want to sow discord between Regina and Katie?" "I didn't." "Don't talk nonsense." Big wavy Karen kept an innocent smile on her face. "I just told the truth. As for what Katie thinks, I don't care." Looking at Karen's innocent look, Gretchen finally just shook her head and said nothing. In the devil figure group, Gretchen's position is very vague. Although she has a beauty that is not inferior to Regina and Karen, her presence is very weak. Her personality is a bit like Dan, a little introverted and a little inferior. Joining the devil figure group is just to make herself look more sociable. So, Gretchen is actually the protected party in the team. Therefore, she does not hate Regina, who has a strong personality, but has a certain support for her. On the other hand, Regina is a little proud of the influence she has caused in the restaurant. She enjoys the feeling of being noticed by everyone. Judging by herself, she thinks Mike is the same as her. So, she whispered, "How do you feel?" However, Mike didn't care about other people's eyes at all. He praised casually, "You are a good person." What? Regina's brain circuit hadn't reacted until she followed the other party's gaze and noticed her capital. Then, her smile became even brighter. For a handsome guy like Mike, she didn't mind giving him some benefits. On the contrary, after realizing Mike's honesty, she just felt that he was easy to control. Charm Queen Bee has nothing lacking in this kind of thing. And after the previous interaction, Regina's goal has been achieved. To make the classmates in the school misunderstand that she and Mike have an unusual relationship. Next, the rumors about the two will spread throughout the school. Finally, she just needs to wait for Mike to come to her door. No one can resist the charm of the queen bee! Exclamation mark. This is also the initial plan made by Regina. As for whether to make Mike her boyfriend or a fan after conquering him, that can only be said later. After completing the assigned task, Regina waved her hand. "See you next time, little Mike." Regina left with a trailing tone and turned back to give Mike a beautiful smile that made people imagine. It must be said that this is a little goblin who knows how to tease people. However, things may disappoint her. Mike is a person who only eats sugar coating and does not do things. Charm attribute +3, acting experience +66. After absorbing the light balls in his hand, Mike finished the lunch in front of him in a few bites, picked up the milk and walked out. After a while, little George, who was eating alone, caught up with him. He excitedly gossiped, "Mike, I thought you were interested in Katie, but I didn't expect you to secretly hook up with Regina. Can you tell me how you did it?" In front of a goddess like Regina, a poor guy like little George can only look up from a distance. Now seeing the high and mighty goddess being taken down by his good friend, how can he not be excited? You think too much. I'm not familiar with Regina. Mike shook his head and explained, then stopped talking. As a person who has been through this, how could Mike not see Regina's little tricks? Both sides just get what they need. If the other party gives enough sweetness in the future, Mike doesn't mind playing with the other party more. Little George saw that Mike didn't want to talk about himself and Regina. So he changed the subject and said, Mike, did you notice that Katie also sat with the other people in the devil body group today? Do you know what's going on? In the past, Katie would come to stick to Mike during lunchtime. Even after lunch, Katie sometimes asked Mike to take her around the campus. In George's opinion, these two should be a couple. In connection with the various strange behaviors of the devil body group today, even the slow reacting George smelled a hint of conspiracy at this time. He already regarded Katie as half a friend, so he was naturally a little worried. I don't know much about this. Mike shrugged. However, in Mike's opinion, it is also a good thing that Katie can make friends with the devil body group. This will allow her to adapt to campus life faster. Just when George wanted to talk to Mike for a few more words, at the side door of the library, Karen with big waves blocked Mike's way. Mike, can we chat? Karen blinked her big eyes and asked cutely. Her innocent look easily aroused others' desire to protect her. Well, I still have to go back to the classroom alone today. George said goodbye to Mike tacitly and walked to the classroom alone. A perfect version in the 16-9 book bar. Seeing that Mike hooked up with Karen from the devil body group again, George decided not to ask about each other's emotional problems in the future. It's too depressing. Is it great to be handsome? Exclamation mark. In the library, Sheldon and Dan were still eating lunch face to face. But today, Sheldon looked at the sandwich and hot dog in front of him and showed no signs of eating. Because of the sausage stuck in his throat in the morning, he had a shadow on solid food. Dan didn't know what little Sheldon was thinking. He saw that he didn't seem to have an appetite. So he suggested, Sheldon, do you want to try the curry rice made by my own family? We can exchange food. Because of their Vietnamese descent, Dan's family didn't have an easy life in a small town in Texas. Sandwiches and hot dogs are very common food for little Sheldon. But for Dan, it is a luxury. Thank you, I don't like curry. Little Sheldon looked at the half-eaten sticky yellow curry rice in front of Dan and refused. The last time Mike ordered a few Vietnamese dishes for little Sheldon, he completely lost interest in curry. That's a pity. Dan looked at little Sheldon's food with envy. Dan had been a guest at little Sheldon's house before. Although the content of the conversation at the table was a bit unpleasant, the rich food of the Cooper family left a deep impression on Dan. When Dan was disappointed that he didn't get to eat Sheldon's food, he saw handsome Mike being pulled into the library by a beautiful woman from the side door, and then the two of them went to a hidden corner. Dan, oh, it's another day of envying Mike. Karen, what's the matter? Mike asked, smelling the fragrance in the air. The two of them were in the gap between the bookcases. Because of the small space, Karen's domineering justice was about to hit Mike. And the girl was a little over 1.6 meters tall, with her head half tilted up, just at the height of Mike's lips. Aren't you curious about Katie? Karen was wearing pink glossy lipstick, which was very coordinated with her slightly red cheeks at the moment. Well, just talk if you want to, can you not be a hooligan? Mike asked speechlessly. Who would have thought that Karen, who had a pair of beautiful eyes like a deer and an innocent face, was dishonest with her little hands, secretly touching Mike's abdominal muscles. If you feel you've been wronged, you can return it. Karen had an angelic face, a playful smile on her lips, and she leaned forward again. The combination of an angel and a devil is indeed extraordinary. Chapter 32, Fighting Regina. A subtle and suppressed voice came from the corner. 10 minutes later, Karen tidied her messy sideburns and hurriedly left the library. Although Mike was not completely eaten by her. However, it must be said that this girl is very brave and very good. Karen knew that with Regina suppressing her, she could not monopolize Mike at all, so she chose to try it first. This girl with an angelic face is not as pure as imagined, and Mike also learned some of Regina's plans from her. However, Mike is not very interested in the intrigues between girls. This made Karen a little disappointed. The big wavy girl originally wanted to kill two birds with one stone, and it would be best if she could pull Mike to her camp while trying it. At this moment, she left from the side door, turned her head, and saw Gretchen with her arms around the door. It seems that the other party has been waiting here for some time. Gretchen was still elegant. She glanced at her friend who looked a little guilty and said softly, "Regina asked me to come to you." Karen left without asking Regina for permission. However, she had just tried to reduce the time she spent with Mike, but she didn't expect Regina to not even give her such a little private time. At this moment, Karen was dissatisfied with Regina's control again. She bewitched, "Gretchen, are you willing to be Regina's little follower forever? There's nothing wrong with that." Gretchen's face was calm, and people couldn't tell what she was thinking. Okay. Karen failed to win her over, and felt a little depressed. Then, she blinked her big eyes pitifully, half flattering and half testing. "You didn't see anything just now, right?" Karen, who knew Regina's methods, didn't want her to know that she was cheating with Mike. Looking at Karen's cute and adorable appearance, Gretchen shook her head slightly. "Don't worry, that's your business, I won't say anything." After getting Gretchen's assurance, Karen returned to her heartless and innocent appearance. However, her eyes narrowed into a crescent shape, revealing her inner heart, which was not as calm as she looked. The two walked towards the 12th grade, one in front and one behind. Suddenly, Gretchen stopped and turned to look at Karen again. "What's wrong?" Karen thought that the other party had changed his mind and acted like a frightened little rabbit. Seeing Karen's panic, Gretchen smiled, pointed at her lips, and said, "Your lipstick has faded, you'd better touch it up." After that, Gretchen continued to walk forward, as if nothing had happened. Seeing Gretchen teasing her, and the smile on her face, Karen silently touched up her makeup, while seeming to get to know her taciturn best friend again. Judging from her behavior just now, her best friend definitely has a dark attribute. On the other side, punk girl Janice and sissy Damien also found Katie, who left the restaurant in anger, in the women's restroom. "Are you okay?" Damien asked with concern. "Did the people from the devil body group bully you? I'll go and avenge you." Damien has a hot temper. He rolled up his sleeves and looked like he was going to fight someone. "I'm fine." Katie held her friend and shook her head. There was a bit of bitterness on her face. To be honest, the people from the devil body group really didn't bully Katie. She was so smart that she lost the good situation. "I'm glad you're okay." The sissy Damien on the side didn't feel ashamed at all when he entered the women's restroom. After comforting Katie, he said, "You guys chat first, I need to go to the toilet." After that, he ignored the disgusted looks of other girls in the women's restroom and walked into a cubicle on his own. Janice made an international gesture to the sis's back. Then she turned to look at Katie and continued to ask with concern, "What are you thinking? Why did you contact Regina and the others?" Katie didn't know how to react now. She thought for a while and decided to tell her good friend everything that happened in the restaurant. Hearing that Regina used means to break up Katie and Mike, Janice angrily scolded, "Regina, this bitch is still so annoying." Janice, who had vented her anger, came back to her senses and continued to ask, "What are you going to do in the future? Do you still plan to stay in the devil body group?" Katie calmed down when someone shared her feelings. This time, she thought carefully for a long time, and her eyes gradually became firm. "I have decided. Since Regina wants to plot against me, I will defeat her in the place where she is most proud." Katie has almost understood the survival rules of schoolgirls during this period. She decided to instigate the other two members of the devil body group to replace Regina and get the position of Queen Bee. Next, Katie told Janice all her plans and asked her to give her a reference. After listening to Katie's plan, the punk girl Damien showed great interest. She said excitedly, "This is really a genius plan. The correct version is on the 16-9 book forum." Then, Janice carefully analyzed the weaknesses of the three members of the devil body group. Karen is brainless. Gretchen has no opinion. Regina is a bitch. Sissy Damien came out after playing trumpet and just heard the plan of the two girls. He called Katie aside mysteriously and persuaded her, "Katie, are you really determined to do this? You have to understand your demands. If it's for Mike, you don't have to get involved with the devil body group. When Katie was stunned, Damien lowered his voice and continued, and don't listen to Janice's words. She was hurt by Regina before. Katie also knew something about the gender preference of the punk girl Janice. Suddenly hearing that her friend had a relationship with Regina, Katie gossiped, "Can you tell me more about it?" Janice, the punk girl, actually behaved very normally like other high school girls when she first entered high school. She was careful to keep the fact that she liked girls to herself. Until Regina, as a good friend, got her to know her gender preference. Then, the rumor spread in the school. Janice was hit hard by the fact that her private secret was known by the whole school. So, she became the punk girl with heavy makeup now. However, before Damien could tell the gossip about the punk girl, Janice, the punk girl, looked at Damien with a look of despair and gritted her teeth and said, "Are you sure you want to tell me?" Seeing that the other party was about to go crazy, the sissy Damien shrank his neck and surrendered. "No, I don't know anything." After saying that, he laughed awkwardly twice. Katie saw the reactions of her two friends and knew that the experience was probably not a good one for Janice. So, she lost interest in asking more. The bathroom meeting came to an end, and the three walked out side by side. Suddenly, Katie asked, "Who of you has pink clothes?" The punk girl looked at her black outfit and pursed her lips, indicating that she was helpless. "Over there," the sissy Damien smiled proudly. "I have several pieces. Do you want them?" Looking at Damien's fancy appearance, Katie got goosebumps all over the floor and said disdainfully, "Forget it, I'll think of other ways. Tomorrow is Tuesday, and the members of the Devil Body group need to wear pink clothes." Chapter 33 The Chewy Man. Charm attribute +10, skin attribute +5. In the library, Mike absorbed the light ball left by Karen, tidied his clothes, and prepared to leave. Suddenly, he saw little Sheldon, who looked distressed. "What's bothering you, Sheldon?" Mike walked over and asked. After this period of contact, Mike has regarded the Cooper family as his family. In his eyes, little Sheldon is not only a good leak, but also a younger brother who needs care. Little Sheldon looked up at Mike and said, "Do you want to eat my lunch?" "No, I've already eaten." Mike shook his head and refused. "That's fine." Little Sheldon put the food away seriously like a little adult and prepared to leave. Dan, who was standing aside, looked at him with admiration since Mike appeared. "Is there a flower on my face?" Mike asked with a smile. Dan originally wanted to find out about Mike's private life, but he was stared at by the other party, and he felt guilty for no reason. After dodging his eyes several times, Dan mustered up his courage, pointed at the base of his ear, and said to Mike, You have a lipstick mark here." "Really? Thank you." Mike calmly took a napkin from Sheldon and wiped his ear. Then, he left the library with Sheldon, who had packed up. Dan ate his curry rice and watched Mike leave with envy. In the afternoon self-study class, Mike sat with Lina, as if nothing had happened. During the 1-hour communication time, Lina peeked at Mike's handsome profile from time to time and made up her mind, "I will protect this handsomeness." Then during the outdoor exercise time, without Sam's disruption, Mike's physical training went very smoothly. After a day of campus life, Mike took a comfortable shower and walked out of the school with George. Suddenly, George motioned to Mike, "Look over there, it's Katie." Mike turned his head and saw that it was Katie. She was far behind, and when she saw Mike looking over, she turned her face to the side. Little George was a little happy to see the other party and was about to wave to the other party to come over. At this time, a pink convertible sports car just stopped in front of Mike. There were 3 beautiful blonde girls sitting in the car. The beautiful women in the car occupied all of little George's sight, and his mind was blank for a moment. Regina held the steering wheel with one hand and said to him sideways, "What a coincidence, we meet again. Do you want a ride?" She stared at Mike without blinking and even lifted her hair seductively. Mike passed her and saw Karen winking at him playfully. "Okay." Mike said goodbye to little George and got on the convertible openly. With laughter, the convertible left a burst of exhaust and sped away. Only the envious little George was left there. Realizing that Katie was nearby and should have seen this scene, little George became worried again. In his heart, he still simply believed that Mike and Katie were the most suitable couple. However, when he wanted to explain a few words for his good brother, he found that Katie, who was just behind him, had also disappeared. Forget it, why should I worry about this? Little George shook his head and walked home alone. He had never even touched a girl's hand, so there was really no need for him to worry about Mike. Katie, who was hiding behind the telephone pole, did not come out until the sports car left for a long time. She didn't know why she was hiding from Mike. However, seeing Regina's glorious appearance, Katie's idea of taking the queen bee became more determined. In a corner that no one noticed, there was another girl who also saw the scene of Mike sitting in the sports car. The wind blew Regina's hair, making her blonde hair flutter like a ribbon. Regina asked confidently, "How does it feel to go for a ride?" Mike grabbed the little hand behind him that was making trouble and replied, "Not bad." Regina laughed unconsciously twice, thinking that she had already controlled the other party. So, she pulled, "Where do you want to go now? I can take you there." Well, Mike thought about the state of little Sheldon at noon and said, "Do you know where there is a comic book store? Just leave me there." Mike knew that if no one intervened, little Sheldon's anorexia would last for a long time. And if you want to make him eat solid food again, you need some special ways. It just so happened that Mike knew that the stories of superheroes in comic books could give little Sheldon courage. "Are you sure you want to go to the comic book store?" Regina turned her head and looked at Mike uncertainly. There was a trace of contempt in her eyes. In the eyes of the queen bee, only Oticus like those vulgar comics. "Yes, I'm sure." Mike nodded. So, with a roar, the pink sports car stopped at the door of the comic book store in the town. After leaving Mike, the sports car left like the wind again. Mike fanned the dust raised by the sports car and then walked into the comic book store curiously. After walking around the comic book store, Mike selected 2 suitable hero comic books and left. At dinner time, Mike brought his little gift and went to the Cooper family with Grandma Connie. As expected, the Cooper family was worried about little Sheldon not eating. Looking at the lunch that little Sheldon brought back intact, anxious Mary was considering whether to take little Sheldon to see a psychologist. Check out the correct version on 1619 book bar. You are making a fuss. If he is hungry for a few days, he will know how to eat by himself. George looked at Mary's doting look and felt that she was overreacting a little. Shelley is so young, how can he not eat? You don't care about your family at all. Mary felt sorry for her little son and began to criticize her husband. Seeing the 2 adults quarreling over little Sheldon again, little George and Missy could only watch from the side. As for little Sheldon, standing between his parents, he was also a little at a loss. What's wrong with them? As soon as Grandma Connie entered the door, she felt that the atmosphere was wrong. She came to Missy and little George and asked in a low voice, "It's because little Sheldon refuses to eat." Missy was a little dissatisfied with her parents' excessive attention to little Sheldon. Because little Sheldon's IQ is so high, Mary is very proud of him. In life, she will naturally give more preferential treatment to this youngest son. In contrast, the other 2 children in the Cooper family will be unconsciously neglected. Not only Mary, but even Grandma Connie sometimes pays more attention to little Sheldon. Looking at the expressions of the 2 children, Grandma Connie smiled and said, "Do you want to eat ice cream? Grandma will drive you to buy it later. We won't take Sheldon this time." Really? Missy became happy, but she didn't even realize that what she wanted was probably not ice cream, but the care of adults. The same is true for 16-year-old George over there. After comforting the 2 little guys, Grandma Connie walked to the dining table. She didn't try to stop the quarrel between Mary and George, but took the blender and threw the lunch that little Sheldon brought back at noon into it. After a while, a cup of sandwich hot dog juice was placed in front of little Sheldon. Little Sheldon was just worried that the food would get stuck in his throat again, and he had no objection to liquid food. Seeing the little guy drinking the special food juice, Grandma Connie, who had taken care of everything, clapped her hands handsomely. The problem was solved, and Mary stopped scolding her husband. Taking advantage of this time, Mike put the comic book he had prepared in front of little Sheldon. After that, the family started dinner. Little Sheldon, who had just drunk the food juice, had nothing to do for a while. Finally, he noticed the comic book in front of him. While others were eating, little Sheldon was immersed in the story of the hero. In the comic book, every hero has to go through all kinds of hardships before success, so as to overcome his own weaknesses. This is the shining point of the hero. Little Sheldon, who fantasized that he had become a superhero, began to reflect on himself. In the end, he realized that, if he wanted to be a hero, he needed to overcome the problem of not daring to eat solid food. After a struggle of thought, the hero's dream finally defeated his fear. So, in front of everyone's surprised eyes, little Sheldon grabbed a sausage covered with sauce with his hands, stuffed it into his mouth, and chewed it vigorously. "Shelly, what's wrong with you?" Mary exclaimed. "From now on, please call me Chewing Man." Little Sheldon was still immersed in the feeling of being a hero, and a smug smile appeared on his face unconsciously. He must be crazy. Missy glanced at little Sheldon. Then, her attitude changed, and she invited Mike. "Do you want to go for ice cream with me later?" Intelligence attribute +1. Mike took the ball of light that burst out from little Sheldon, and responded to Missy, "Of course, I can treat you to strawberry ice cream." Chapter 34 Prank. Sure enough, within a few days, the scandal between Mike and Regina spread throughout the school. The scandalous news about this pair of handsome men and beautiful women was very popular among students. Of course, Regina was also the reason behind this. She was still waiting, and through the guidance of public opinion, Mike would take the initiative to come to her. However, a week later, Mike went to class on time every morning, and exercised seriously in the afternoon. There was no intention of paying for Regina. Also in this week, Katie resisted the urge to go to Mike again. She strictly followed the requirements of the bestie code and successfully entered the devil figure group. Time soon came to the weekend again. This time, without Katie's interruption, Lina made an appointment with Mike again. In order to deepen the goodwill between the two, Lina dressed very sexy today. The two strolled in the bustling commercial street for a while, and Lina found the right time, and fell into Mike's arms. "What's wrong?" Mike asked, holding his arm with a fragrant breeze. "I think I sprained my foot." Lina looked up at Mike, looking fragile. It has to be said that girls are born actors. Anyone who sees Lina's pitiful appearance will want to take care of her. Mike looked at the 8cm high heels on the girl's feet, looked around, and suggested, "I'll help you go to the fountain and rest for a while in the center of the commercial street. There is an artificial fountain for tourists to rest and cool off." The two found a good secluded location at the fountain. Mike took off the high heels on the girl's feet and checked them with his hands. He didn't find anything unusual. "Does it still hurt now?" Feeling the warmth of Mike's palm, Lina blushed and muttered with misty eyes, "I feel much better. I should be fine after a rest." "That's good." Mike looked at the girl's shy appearance and seemed to understand something, so he sat next to her. "Mike, there's no one at my house today. Do you want to go sit?" Seeing that the time was right, although Lina was shy, she took the initiative to launch an offensive. "Oh." Mike turned his head and saw that the girl's ears were red. As a gentleman, Mike had no reason to live up to the other party's kindness, so he replied, "Okay, I'll take you home after you've rested." After making his intentions clear, Mike was no longer restrained. The two got closer and closer, and finally snuggled together. At the same time, Katie also followed the devil body group, and went shopping on the weekend. Katie has changed a lot this week, from dressing to expression management, and even her aura has changed a lot. She has changed from a country girl to a beautiful beauty. In the commercial street, the four beautiful girls are the focus of everyone wherever they go. However, Regina still occupies a dominant position in the team, and the three girls behind her who help her carry shopping bags are more like bag carrying girls. "It's too hot. Find a place to rest." Regina, who was empty-handed, blocked the sun with her hands and commanded. Behind her, the three girls carrying large and small bags were relieved when they heard the words. Katie wiped the sweat off her face and looked around, looking for a place to rest. Suddenly, she saw the familiar figure, who was sitting with a pretty girl. Katie didn't know what she was thinking. She quickly stood in front of Regina and said with a guilty conscience, "The location here is not good. I saw a milk tea shop on the roadside before. How about we go there to rest?" Regina was not so easy to fool. She had passed Katie and saw Mike and the girl next to him. Then, Regina looked ahead with a smile and cursed, "Damn little bitch, give me the phone." After saying that, Regina reached back and stretched out her hand. Seeing this, Karen rummaged in her bag and took out a mobile phone and handed it to the other party. "Do you want to call Mike? As far as I know, he doesn't have a mobile phone." Katie wanted to defend Mike in her heart. Regina sneered, rummaged through the phone book, and dialed the number. "Excuse me, is this the emergency center? Oh, please transfer a call for me." Regina transferred the call to Lina's family through the public service platform. "Hello, this is the obstetrics and gynecology laboratory. Is Lina here? Oh, are you Lina's mother? Well, please contact Lina as soon as possible and ask her to call us back. Her test results are out." At this time, Lina's mother, who was busy on the farm, suddenly heard the news that her daughter had been to the obstetrics and gynecology department and she was not feeling well. But before she could ask about the situation in detail, the other party hung up the phone. Lina's mother, who was furious, quickly called her daughter to reprimand her. Getting pregnant in high school is a shameful thing in this small town. On the other side, Lina, who was flirting with Mike, got a call. A correct version in the 16-9 book bar. "Excuse me, I have to answer the phone." Lina blushed and avoided it. After a while, Lina, who received the call from her mother, looked more and more ugly. Mike, who was standing by, heard the reprimand on the phone. "What happened?" Mike asked, looking at Lina, who was walking back in frustration. "I don't know either." Lina was scolded by her mother, and she didn't know what she had done wrong. She continued in disappointment. "My mother said she was waiting for me at home and asked me to go back quickly. I'm afraid I can't invite you home today. If you have something to do, just go and do it first." Mike looked at Lina's feet and continued, "Your feet? It's fine now." Lina shook her head and then said reluctantly, "Then I'll invite you next time when I'm free." After that, she left in a hurry. In the distance, Regina, who had watched a big show, was in a good mood. "Let's go, I'll treat you to milk tea." Looking at Regina, as if nothing had happened, Katie couldn't help feeling a little chilled. It was the first time she really saw the queen bee's methods, and then looked at Mike, who was alone at the fountain. After a mental struggle, Katie still said, "Regina, I remembered that I still have something to do. Can I?" She actually wanted to find Mike. Although she showed no concern for Mike this week, she was actually still paying attention to him in her heart. Regina looked at Katie and gave a fake smile. What could be more important than an activity between best friends? "Let's go and have some milk tea together. I'll take you to my house later." Katie wanted to insist, but she found that Regina's eyes were getting more and more dangerous, so she had to agree to her proposal. On the other side, Mike, who was alone, went home bored. He had planned to train his physical fitness alone, but suddenly thought of Aaron. As the quarterback of the football team, he contributed a lot of physical attributes to Mike during training. It was much faster to pick up attributes from him than Mike's training alone. Moreover, if Mike remembered correctly, he had promised to train together on weekends. So Mike called Aaron. Not long after, a dilapidated pickup truck arrived in front of Connor's grandmother's house. Aaron, who received the invitation, got out of the car. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Training Family Members. After Aaron got off the car, he didn't bother Mike, who was warming up. He waited outside the yard until Mike finished a set of Bobby exercises. Then he said, "You are growing very fast. Maybe Coach George should consider letting you play in the summer league soon." Host of the pickup system, Mike Quinn, Zaokun, Intelligence 157 plus, normal 92 110, excellent 110 to 120, very excellent 120 to 140, genius 140 plus, constitution 136 plus, normal adult male is 100, skills, driving LV3, 76 over 10,000, football LV2, 856 thousandths, cooking LV2, 256 thousandths. Skills are divided into 5 levels / more skills can be seen by expanding. Characteristics: Demon Body 1. Immortality 2. Eternal Youth 3. Fast Healing. Note, the immortality here does not mean immortality. If the brain or heart is severely damaged, death will still occur. Similar characteristics are superimposed and fused. During this period, Mike has been working hard and picking up various physical attributes, and his physical fitness has increased by more than 20 points. Don't underestimate these improvements, which are equivalent to 1/5 of the physical fitness of ordinary people. Fortunately, there is quick healing. Otherwise, Mike would not dare to do such a large amount of exercise, so that his physical fitness can be improved so much in a short time. Mike's current physical fitness is already one of the best in the football team, probably a little better than Aaron. According to Mike's estimation, a physical fitness of more than 140 should reach the minimum standard for athletes. Now there is more than a week before the high school summer league, and Mike is confident that he can improve his physical fitness to more than 140 before the league starts. If Mike works harder and improves his football experience to level 3, he will definitely have a chance to become the absolute trump card of Melford Middle School. Aaron, as the captain, has seen all of Mike's efforts and growth. After the Sam incident, Aaron thought that there was another troublemaker in the team at first. However, after this period of contact, Aaron found that Mike has a good personality and works harder than anyone else during training. Aaron, who planned to play football as his career, naturally admired such a junior. "Do you need to rest or come with me now?" Aaron asked when he saw the sweat on Mike's forehead. "No, I feel good now." Mike wiped the sweat and asked curiously, "Where are you going to take me to train?" Aaron's pickup truck was filled with some regular sports equipment. It must be said that this senior in the 12th grade is very professional in training. "Go to the school playground, there is plenty of space," Aaron responded. "The school here will not be closed on weekends, but will be open to surrounding residents." However, this does not affect Aaron and Mike's exercise on the playground. Just as Mike was about to get on the pickup truck, the Cooper family next door heard the noise. George came out with 3 children. After seeing Aaron, George greeted him first, and then asked, "What are you doing?" "Oh, Mike invited me to exercise on the weekend, and we are going to school," Aaron explained. As for George, since he fell last time, Mary has been watching him and started to quit drinking. This weekend, he didn't get to drink beer. George thought it's better to go out and have some fresh air than to stay at home. Besides, the summer league is about to start, and he has a sense of urgency. "I have the key to the equipment room here. I'll go with you," George suggested. The 2 people in the car naturally welcomed it, and Missy, who was next to George's father, saw Mike in the passenger seat and asked to go with him. Little George, on the other side, saw so many people going and also said he wanted to join in the fun. The 5-seater pickup truck will soon be full. Mike rolled down the window, looked at the lonely little Sheldon on the side of the road, and joked, "Sheldon, do you want to go with us to play?" "No, compared to barbaric sports, I prefer to enrich my brain at home. The Science and Education channel is about to start." Little Sheldon analyzed seriously and solemnly. "Okay, see you later." Mike smiled and rolled up the window again. With the roar of the pickup truck, the 4 people were driven to the school. At the same time, the 4 members of the Devil Body group also took Regina's sports car to her small villa. Regina's father is also called George. He works in Guogia Power Grid and is a regional leader. Therefore, Regina's family has good economic conditions and connections. Katie looked at the pink villa in front of her and was a little surprised. Yes, Regina's house was specially painted in a girlish color. Regina glanced at Katie's face and was very satisfied with her surprised expression. After despising the word country bumpkin in her heart, Regina brought 3 little followers and entered the house. A correct version in 1619 book and bar. The 2-story villa has been specially designed, and the ceiling, furniture and other furnishings are full of high-end feeling. At this moment, in the living room on the 2nd floor, a woman wearing leggings was dancing aerobics with the TV. "Mom, my friends are coming. Turn down the volume of the TV." Regina went up to the second floor and covered her ears and shouted to the woman in front of the TV. "What?" The woman turned around and had a face that was 70% similar to Regina. She was Mrs. George, and her name was Amy. She was almost 40 years old, but she was well maintained and looked like she was in her early 20s. If she went out with her daughter Regina, many people would probably mistake them for sisters. Here, Regina arranged the three little sisters to sit on the sofa and then continued to shout to the hall. I said, "The noise is too loud this time." Amy heard her daughter's words clearly. She turned off the TV directly and walked towards Regina happily. "Oh, my baby, did you have fun today?" Amy showed a bright smile, and it can be seen that she has a very cheerful personality. That's it. Regina seemed indifferent to her mother's enthusiasm. Amy didn't care. She looked at the three girls left on the sofa, greeted them one by one, and came to Katie. "Are you Regina's new friend? You are so beautiful. Have you ever thought about being a model?" Amy was overly enthusiastic. Katie was a little uncomfortable at first, looking at Regina's mother's fashionable outfit and enthusiastic appearance. It must be said that Amy is well maintained. She looks as dazzling as Regina, and she has a more mature charm. "Mom, let's be quiet for a while." Regina looked at her familiar mother and felt a little embarrassed. "Okay, you guys have fun. I'll go get you some drinks." Amy was full of energy, and she seemed to like to mingle with the girls. After Amy left, Regina explained, "Amy is too idle, and my dad is busy with work and has no time to accompany her, so she is so weird." "No, I think your mother has a good personality." Katie reacted and praised Regina's mother. Judging from her performance just now, Regina's mother is indeed much easier to get along with than she is. On the side, Karen and Gretchen, who had already seen Amy's enthusiasm, also nodded and agreed with Katie's statement. Chapter 36 Secret. On the school playground, George explained some practical experience to Mike, and then let Mike start the confrontation training under the pressure of Aaron and George. Then, he was in a good mood and prepared to move his body a little on the playground. Since Mike suggested that he keep exercising moderately every day, George has been in the mode of fishing for 2 days and drying the net for 3 days. It really takes a lot of perseverance to change human habits in a short time. On the side, Missy looked at Mike, who was sweating on the field, and felt that he was full of charm. Even the little girl loved the house and the people in it, and she also developed a great interest in rugby. So, after watching Mike training for a while, the little girl moved her short legs and caught up with George, who was running hard on the track. "Dad, I want to learn rugby," Missy shouted excitedly. George stopped, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and looked at his little daughter in surprise. Then, he shook his head and analyzed. "Missy, you are still young and not suitable for rugby. When you grow up a little, Dad will teach you, okay?" This is obviously a tone of coaxing a child. But strictly speaking, children who are too young are not suitable for rugby, a fierce sport. Injuries often occur in official rugby matches. But Missy is still young and doesn't understand these things at all. She said cutely, "No, I want to learn rugby." Okay, George tried to persuade his daughter and could only change the subject. "How about I find a baseball later and we practice throwing and catching the ball?" "I don't want baseball, I want to learn rugby." Missy pouted and continued her cute offensive. "Okay." George rolled his eyes and said, "I'll find a rugby later and we practice passing and catching the ball." "Great, I can play rugby like Mike." Missy cheered. George, children are so easy to fool. On the other side, in Regina's villa, Amy came back with 4 cocktails with great effort. Seeing this, Katie hurried to help. Soon, the cocktails were distributed to the 3 girls. Amy handed the most colorful cocktail in her hand to Katie and said, "This is your first time here. This is a special cocktail I made for you. I hope you like it." "Thank you." Katie took the glass, looked at the colorful liquid in the goblet, sniffed it carefully, and said worriedly, "There won't be any alcohol in it." As a good child, Katie is not yet of drinking age. Amy found Katie's reaction very interesting. She smiled mysteriously. "Of course, you are still a child." Katie thought she had received the other party's guarantee, so she took a sip of the glass. Then, her mouth was filled with the smell of alcohol. After coughing uncomfortably for a few times, Katie looked at Amy, who was smiling beside her, and said uncertainly, "Are you sure there is no alcohol in it?" Amy laughed out loud and continued what she had said before. "Of course, you are still a child. You should try it more. Alcohol is not a bad thing." Well, now Katie discovered Amy's bad taste. It seems that the reason for Regina's weird personality has also been found. Katie turned her head and saw that the other 3 people in the devil figure group were also looking at the show. They had long known that the drinks contained alcohol, and drinking was a very common thing for them. Katie, who understood the truth of the matter, didn't say much in the end, but just silently put the goblet in her hand on the table. On the other side, Regina didn't care about Katie's reaction. "Okay, Katie, I'll take you to my room to see some good things compared to Katie's plain room." Regina's private room was also decorated in a girlish color. There were strings of star-shaped ornaments hanging on the ceiling, and when the wind blew, there would be a crisp ding 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 sound. Moreover, there was a very conspicuous large wardrobe in the room, which was filled with various beautiful clothes according to the style. Just when Katie was dazzled, Regina pulled her to the desk and took out a notebook from the grid. "My secrets are recorded here. Do you want to see it?" Regina smiled fakely. Katie broke into the devil figure group just to dig out Regina's secrets so as to deal a blow to the other party. Now that success is in front of her, Katie naturally nodded. "Very good." Regina handed the notebook to Katie and continued, "If you choose to read it, you have to fulfill one of my wishes. One thing for one thing, a very fair trade." Hearing Regina say this, Katie realized that the other party must have another conspiracy. However, driven by curiosity, Katie finally opened the notebook. What Katie didn't expect was that the notebook did not record Regina's personal secrets, but wrote gossip about many people in the school. Most of them were the little secrets of 12th grade girls, while the other part marked the names of school teachers and some other celebrities of different ages. A perfect version in 16:9 book bar. Katie also found the names of Janice and Amy in it, and even saw the name of the principal. Finally, when she turned to the last page, Katie was surprised to see Mike's name. Mike, orphan, homebody, lustful. What's going on? Katie looked at the last page and exclaimed in surprise. "Oh, I asked someone to find out. Mike's parents passed away a few years ago." Regina seemed to be showing off her ability, and he likes to read comics like other fat guys. As for the last one, I don't need to explain it in detail. Mike has only been in school for less than a month, and there are many girls around him. Even Regina seems to be staring at Katie. Katie also has a say in whether Mike is lustful or not. After Regina's explanation, Katie was really a little scared by her. However, kind Katie still thinks that Regina should not record the little secrets of so many people. If the contents of this notebook are leaked, it may cause trouble to many people in the school. But Regina doesn't think so. She took back the notebook and said in a joking tone, "Very good, you have also read the notebook. Now it's time to fulfill my little wish." This. Katie hesitated. Her attention was still on the notebook. "What? You haven't seen enough? Do you need to read it again?" Regina regained her usual smile. "No, no need." Katie declined. "Okay, now it's time for you to fulfill my wish." Regina deliberately dragged out her voice. After appreciating Katie's nervous performance, she continued, "Please tell me a little secret in the school. Anyone's will do." Hearing Regina's request, Katie was relieved at first, but then she felt that the other party's request was actually too much. "Kang Mang, just say something," Regina urged. "Anyone's secret will do." At this point, Katie didn't know how to refuse. She recalled the evaluation of Mike in the notebook just now. Except for the orphan, the other two were just guesses. So, Katie, who thought she had found a solution, thought for a while and said, "Our math teacher Sharon also looks lonely in the office. I suspect she is using contraband." Katie had good math grades in the 12th grade, so she was close to teacher Sharon. And using contraband, normal people would know that Katie was joking when they heard it. However, Regina took out her notebook very seriously and scribbled on it. Chapter 37 Counterattack. In the evening, Mike, who had finished training, walked back with the 3 Coopers with satisfaction. This afternoon, he got 3 more points of physical attributes from Aaron. On the other side, Katie also left Regina's house in a daze. This afternoon, she refreshed her cognition. In the room, she first learned the little secret of Regina's notebook, and then, the rest of the time, she learned cheerleading dance with the enthusiastic Amy in the living room on the 2nd floor. Because of joining the Devil Body group, Katie was also required to join the school cheerleading team. The summer league was about to start, and Amy, who couldn't stay idle, specially choreographed a set of hot warm-up dances for her daughter's cheerleading team. Thinking of the bold and flamboyant dance moves, Katie felt embarrassed. But compared to the hot dance, Regina's notebook full of little secrets made Katie more worried. After a night of psychological struggle, Katie went to find her good friends, Janice and Damien in the 12th grade early the next morning. The dim basement of Damien's house became the secret base for the 3 of them. Here, Katie told her 2 friends about Regina's notebook. After hearing this, the punk girl Janice was very excited. Great Katie! Janice didn't expect that Katie only took more than a week to find out Regina's secret. She continued, if we can get that notebook and make it public, it will definitely ruin Regina's reputation. The punk girl, who was imagining that scene, couldn't help but smile happily. She had been waiting for this day for a long time. No, Katie rejected her friend's proposal and expressed her concerns. The notebook could certainly bring bad luck to Regina, but the content recorded in the notebook involved too many things, and if she was not careful, it would cause more serious consequences. This was something that the kind-hearted Katie didn't want to see. On the other hand, although Janice was eager for revenge, she calmed down after listening to Katie's concerns. After a while, the punk girl Janice continued, forget it, even without that notebook, we can still defeat Regina. She drew the attention of the other 2 people in the basement and came to a small blackboard, picked up the chalk and said, the reason why Regina is so arrogant is entirely because she has many followers in the school. As long as we let those followers leave Regina, she will be nothing. Katie was fascinated by what she said, nodded, and said, what should we do? It's very simple. Janice wrote the words figure and charm on the small blackboard. Then, she explained, as long as Regina doesn't have these 2 things, she will no longer be the queen bee. Sorry, interrupt. Sissy Damien raised his hand. Although I don't want to admit it, Regina is indeed amazingly charming. And with how much she values her figure, we have no chance to do anything. No, we didn't before. But now we have Katie. Janice told the 2 about her plan. It was probably to let Katie use her status as a member of the Devil Body team to provide Regina with foreign cosmetics and weight loss products for free. Starting from these 2 things, replace the cosmetics with inferior products, and then replace the weight loss products with weight gain products. Basically, turn Regina into a fat woman that people hate. Seeing that Janice's plan was only for Regina, Katie, who had always felt that Regina needed some punishment, immediately said that she could cooperate. After the long-term plan was finalized, Janice proposed a short-term plan for Regina. It was to let Katie, who was in the cheerleading team, find an opportunity to destroy Regina's uniform. Imagine Regina as the captain, wearing a destroyed cheerleading uniform. That scene must be very interesting. Then, the 2 girls continued to discuss the details of dealing with Regina. Katie looked like she was possessed by a demon and was led by Janice. Sissy Damien reminded, Katie, do you remember what your original goal was? If you want to take down Mike, you have more than just Regina as your opponent. Katie also knew some of the news that Mike was close to the girls in the same class during this period. Especially yesterday, she saw Mike sitting with a girl with her own eyes. Thinking of this situation, Katie fell silent and didn't know what to do for a while. Katie, don't think too much. Janice comforted, after you deal with Regina, those little girls in the 11th grade are not your opponents at all. However, when saying these words, Janice also acted a little guilty. Obviously, her personal grudge with Regina has affected her judgment. However, Katie, who didn't know what to do, got strength from her friend's words at this time. She fantasized that, as long as she became the queen bee, she would be able to win back Mike's heart. Read the correct version in the 16:9 book forum. So, Katie's determination to deal with Regina became more determined. Meanwhile, on the last day of the weekend, Mike did not choose to continue exercising, but came to Cooper's house to watch the NFL, professional football, broadcast with Coach George and his family. In front of the TV, George explained the game skills to Mike while watching the game. Professional football games are divided into 4 quarters. Each quarter lasts 15 minutes. 2 quarters are also called a half. There is a 2-minute break between each quarter and a 20-minute break in the middle of the first and second halves. There are 3 ways to score in football: touchdowns, field goals, and safety. Touchdowns: the offensive player, holding the ball into the defensive end zone, can score 6 points, and there is an additional scoring opportunity. Field goal: the offensive kicker kicks the ball towards the opponent's goal. If it is kicked in, 3 points can be scored. Safety: this is a scoring method for the defensive side. If the offensive side is pinned down, out of bounds, or fouled in its own end zone, this may be a safety, and the defensive side can score 2 points. The exhibition match between the Cardinals and the Longhorns on TV has entered the 3rd quarter. The Longhorns were on the offensive side, but were pushed down near their own end zone by the defensive Cardinals. Maybe the next confrontation will be a chance for the Cardinals to score a goal. In general, the probability of scoring a goal is very small in a game, unless the strength gap between the 2 teams is too large. Seeing that the Longhorns' 4 offensive opportunities were about to end, George shouted excitedly, "Damn it, if you don't want to be scored by a goal, send the punter to the field." Because of his sympathy for the weak team, George obviously brought himself into the Longhorns. 4 attacks. During the offense, the offensive team has 4 opportunities to advance. If the cumulative advance of 4 times is 10 yards, it will get another offensive opportunity. Otherwise, the offense and defense will switch. Punt. When the offensive team feels that it cannot advance 10 yards, it can choose to kick the ball to the opponent's backfield on the 4th attack. This can gain a longer defensive distance after the offense and defense switch. Sure enough, on the field, the Longhorns coach thought the same as George and called a timeout on the 4th possession and replaced the punter. That's it. George waved his hand. Although the situation on the field was not favorable for the Longhorns, there was still the 4th quarter and everything was possible. Chapter 38 Probability. Grandma Connie, who was also sitting on the sofa watching the game, seemed to be more focused than George and even forgot to drink the beer in her hand. "Connie, I don't care how the process goes. Please God bless the Longhorns to win in the end." Grandma Connie prayed out loud. "Mom, are you gambling again?" Mary, who was knitting a scarf, asked in surprise. During this period, because Mike would cook at home from time to time, Grandma Connie saved some money. Grandma Connie, who loves to play, naturally used the money to carry out some small entertainment activities. However, her luck recently seems to be not very good. Not only did she lose all her principal, but she also owed some foreign debts. Hearing Mary's question, Grandma Connie still said stubbornly, "No, I didn't." However, this time, Grandma Connie bet on the Longhorns to win the game, just because the name of the Longhorns sounded more pleasant. Grandma Connie is not good at this kind of pure probability betting. Outside the sofa, little Sheldon also sat in front of the TV in order to appear sociable. However, his attention has always been on the science textbook in his hand. Hearing the heated discussion of the crowd, he took the time to look up at the game on TV. At this time, the Longhorns punter had already entered the field and was about to kick the ball. Seeing this, little Sheldon thought for a moment and said, "From the data point of view, it is very unwise to always choose to punt on the 4th offense." In front of the TV, little George, who was also concerned about the Longhorns, shared the same opinion as his father and thought that the choice of punting at this time was very reasonable. Hearing little Sheldon's different opinion, little George turned around and said, "Data? I think you are a big idiot." In the eyes of little George, little Sheldon, who had never touched football, had no right to speak at all. However, little Sheldon did not care about little George's contempt. He analyzed seriously. The data shows that when a team is attacked by the opponent at its own 5-yard line, the opponent has a 92% chance of scoring. And when this team chooses to punt from deep in its own field, the opponent still has a 77% chance of scoring. but if this team chooses to continue attacking, then they will have a 50% chance to get another 4 attack opportunity, making a foul. Therefore, the data shows that the Longhorns should not choose to punt. Little Sheldon's analysis was well reasoned, and everyone on the sofa was quiet for a while. Even little George looked like he was doubting his life. Then, Grandma Connie looked at the clever little Sheldon, smiled and leaned into her daughter's ear, whispering, "Mary, tell me quietly, who is his father?" From a genetic point of view, George and his son have ordinary IQs, but little Sheldon's IQ is a little too high. Hearing Grandma Connie's joke, Mary rolled her eyes and continued to knit the scarf. George, the team coach, took a while to react and said, "Sheldon, I've been involved in football for my whole life. My experience tells me that what you said is wrong." "Really? Wait a minute." After being questioned, Sheldon raised his head and thought for a while, and then said affirmatively, "I calculated correctly. If the Longhorns lose the ball, the opponent will only score another 6 points." As Sheldon explained, the Longhorns, who exchanged the ball for a punt on TV, were indeed scored 6 points by the opponent. Amid the wailing, Grandma Connie approached Mary again. "Tell me honestly, is his biological father the dentist with small glasses?" "Mom." Mary glared at her mother speechlessly, indicating that she didn't want to talk. Coach George, who was slapped in the face, didn't have the heart to analyze the game for Mike in the following time. Half an hour later, the Longhorns were defeated by a large score. Grandma Connie cursed loudly and was about to take out the spinach receipt of the Longhorns and tear it up, but when she saw Mary looking at her, she immediately calmed down. Coach George, who was standing aside, had no mood to watch the game since the Longhorns punt. In his mind, he was still thinking about what little Sheldon said. The game was over, and George couldn't help but say, "Sheldon, although the Longhorns lost in the end, their decision to punt in the third quarter was absolutely correct." Little George also began to denounce little Sheldon at this time. He attributed the failure of the Longhorns to little Sheldon. Little Sheldon, who didn't want to have a meaningless quarrel with the two, turned his attention to Mike. "Mike, as the second smartest person in the family, please tell them if my speculation is correct." Seeing the other parties, as if it was a matter of course, Mike wanted to tell little Sheldon that his IQ would surpass his sooner or later. Then, facing everyone's gaze, Mike thought for a moment and said, "Sheldon's analysis is correct, but he didn't take the strength of the players on the field into account." After the first 2 quarters of the game, it can be seen that the overall strength of the Longhorns is obviously lower than that of their opponents. In the third quarter, whether they chose to punt or not, the result was already doomed. The probability of failure for the entire game is 99.9%. A correct version of the book in the 16-9 forum. "Thank you for your supplement." Little Sheldon closed the book and continued, "Next time, I will take other factors into consideration." After that, little Sheldon hugged the thick textbook and walked towards his room. Seeing this, Grandma Connie also touched the spinach receipt in her pocket and followed. After little Sheldon left for a while, George organized his words and said to Mike seriously, "I don't think probability theory can cover up the efforts of the players. Of course, this is the charm of sports competition." Mike nodded and agreed. He had previously guessed that the probability of failure of the Longhorns was 99.9%, which was also to leave some room. After getting Mike's approval, Coach George's face looked much better. Then, he said, "Sam will be back next week." Although Sam's personality is not pleasing, he is an old member of the football team after all, and he has played many games with the team. If he can't return to the team on time, Mike may still be able to sit in the starting running back position. However, now that Sam has chosen to come back at this time, Coach George can't just take him out of the starting lineup out of consideration for human feelings. "I know." Mike instantly understood Coach George's difficulties. Looking at the other party's apologetic look, he added, "I obey the team's arrangement." Seeing Mike so sensible, Coach George hesitated for a while and promised, "Don't worry, Mike. I promise that you will have a chance to play in the game." The Melford Middle School football team is not strong. In the first round of eliminations, it is often at the level of a one-round tour. This is also the reason why Coach George dare not put Mike, who has no game experience, on immediately. Everything is for better results. Chapter 39. Playing tricks. Time flies and it's Monday. Because the college summer league will start next week, there are obviously more students discussing football in the school. The players of the football team have also become the focus of everyone's attention. Even George, a poor student who often skips class and sleeps, has been accommodating to teachers because of his identity as a football player. On the other hand, Katie also began her own road of revenge. At lunch, she took out a bottle of drink from her body, handed it to Regina, and said, "Regina, this is a weight loss drink my father brought back from Africa. To thank you for taking care of me during this period, please accept it." "Do you think I need to lose weight?" Regina asked back immediately. One sentence made Katie's smile freeze. However, before Katie could think of the next response, over there, Regina picked up the drink bottle and poured herself a glass. "It tastes good." Regina tasted the yellow-orange fruit juice in her hand, then picked up the bottle and studied it. "What country's text is this?" The drink bottle was marked with foreign words, and Regina couldn't understand it at all. "This is Vietnamese. The reason why the local people are so thin is because they often drink this kind of drink." Katie lied calmly. This bottle of sports weight gaining drink was actually picked for Regina by Janice from the department store where she worked. Moreover, as long as Regina thought about it, she could figure out why Katie's father worked in Africa before and brought back Vietnamese specialties. However, which girl can resist the temptation of becoming slimmer? Regina pretended to understand the words on the bottle and commented, "I like its ingredients very much. It's very healthy." To be honest, Regina's figure belongs to the slim type. She is at the age of youth and beauty, and she doesn't need to lose weight at all. And her words are just what Katie wants. "Really? If you like it, I will bring you a bottle every day in the future," Katie promised generously. "You want to curry favor with me?" Regina stared at Katie in confusion. When Katie felt a little uncomfortable, Regina suddenly smiled. "Very good, you have my friendship again." After all the ups and downs, Katie, who was relieved, quietly made an okay gesture to Janice in the corner of the restaurant. The first step was to make Regina lose her good figure. The plan was successful. In the afternoon, before the outdoor sports began, three figures secretly came to the cheerleading dressing room. Damien, who was not so concerned about the sis's punishment of Regina, said, "You go in, I'll keep watch here." Katie and punk girl Janice entered the dressing room. After finding Regina's cheerleading uniform, Katie took out a marker and prepared to draw flowers on the clothes. Janice felt that this was not enough. She shook her head, took out a pair of small scissors, and stepped forward to gesture twice. Finally, in Katie's surprised eyes, Janice cut two big holes in the two most prominent parts of the clothes. After finishing everything, Janice excitedly called two friends and hid at the corner of the aisle, waiting to see Regina make a fool of herself. After a while, Regina came to the locker room. She picked up the torn cheerleading uniform and put it on without much thought. Regina, who has an aura of confidence, is still charming even in the torn clothes. In the aisle, looking at Regina, who is still glamorous, Janice cursed in annoyance. "Bitch!" Just at this time, Mike came from the end of the aisle. Regina stopped him and asked, "Mike, what do you think of my clothes?" Regina has a good figure and looks beautiful in anything she wears. In addition, she has a unique temperament, which makes her even more charming. "Very beautiful," Mike said truthfully. Of course, he was more of a compliment. "Thank you." Regina threw a wink to Mike and walked out with satisfaction. In the aisle, the communication between Mike and Regina, to campus celebrities, was seen by many classmates. The bold and avant-garde design on Regina's clothes was also welcomed by girls after Mike's affirmation. Soon, some girls cut two big holes in their clothes to imitate Regina. The second step was to destroy Regina's charm, and the plan failed. In the corner, after avoiding Mike, Katie said disappointedly, let's not target Regina." She originally wanted to destroy Regina's beautiful image, but just now, by mistake, she let the other party show her presence in front of Mike again. "No, I don't believe that Regina, that little bitch, can continue to be so proud." Janice's speech this time gave people a feeling of gnashing teeth. She took out a box of cosmetics from her body and handed it to Katie, saying, "Go and give this to Regina. I want to destroy her beautiful face." "What is this?" Katie opened the box and smelled it. There was a faint fragrance. However, she was still worried. There won't be any prohibited items in it. Let Regina be disfigured. Check out the correct version on the 16:9 book forum. Although Katie didn't like Regina, she wasn't so vicious as to destroy her appearance. "What are you thinking? There's hemorrhoid cream in it," Janice explained. In fact, she wasn't that vicious. Hearing that it was hemorrhoid cream, Katie immediately closed the lid with disdain. However, as long as she didn't really want to destroy her appearance, Katie said she could accept it. Not long after, Katie found Regina on the playground and enthusiastically handed her the cosmetics. After looking at the cosmetics without any text description, Regina smelled the smell and took it. Then, she encouraged Katie, the little follower. "Very good. You have found the trick to survive in the devil figure team. Keep working hard. Maybe soon you can become the second person in the team." On this day, Katie used 2 gifts to successfully get closer to Regina. On the other side, on the football field, Sam started warming up in protective gear. It can be seen that he recovered well after the last fight. Moreover, after learning a lesson, his personality has become much calmer. Not long after, Aaron, for the sake of team harmony, took Sam to find Mike. With Aaron's witness, Sam took the initiative to admit his mistake and apologized to Mike again. Looking at Sam with a wondering look, Mike felt bored and had no interest in causing trouble for him again. After Aaron and Sam left, George came to Mike. "Sam definitely has no good intentions. I know his character. Forget it, it's all over." Mike shook his head and didn't take Sam's matter to heart. As a running back and safety, the quarterback has the most say in how good they are. After this period of joint training with Mike, Aaron has become accustomed to his coverage. When the confrontation training began, Aaron was surprised to find that Sam's level was not as good as Mike's. So, after finishing a round of training, Aaron, who was concerned about the team's performance, took the initiative to find Coach George again. Chapter 40 Rumors. Mike ignored Sam for a week. Sam continued to exercise regularly and finally refreshed his physical attribute to 140 before the weekend. On the other hand, after Katie continuously supplied weight gaining drinks for a week, Regina's face looked much rounder. At the weekend, as the Summer Cup League approached, the school cheerleaders began to canvass for votes. A temporary booth was set up on the main road of the commercial street to get autographs from residents who supported the Melford Public High School football team. Janice and Damien were drafted to be responsible for signing in front of the booth. Because the cheerleaders were shouting, many tourists stopped to watch on the street. During the break, Regina pulled Katie aside, pointed at her tight skirt, and asked, "Are you sure that Unan's weight loss drink is effective? I have gained more than 11 pounds recently. To lose weight, you should reduce your breasts first, and to gain weight, you should gain legs first." This week, Regina felt deeply. It was just because she had a solid foundation that she could hold on to a temporary increase in weight. Facing Regina's sharp questioning, Katie seemed a little guilty. She looked around and lied. "Well, that weight loss drink is like this. It will first replenish the nutrients needed by the human body, and then it will excrete fat." Katie became calmer and calmer as she spoke. Finally, she pretended to be concerned and asked, "Don't you feel that your body has been getting better and better recently?" Regina, who had never used weight loss products, naturally didn't know the twists and turns. Moreover, the drink Katie gave her was a muscle building drink for athletes, which contained many ingredients that were beneficial to the human body. "That's true. I feel that my skin has improved a lot recently. I eat well and sleep well." Regina thought about her recent condition and stopped being suspicious. She continued to ask, "When will my weight go down?" Regina attaches great importance to body shape management. "Well, if it's fast, it may take a month, or it may take 2 months." Katie answered uncertainly. Gaining more than a pound a week, a month is enough for Regina to gain 6 or 7 pounds. 3 or 4 kilograms of fat was enough to ruin Regina's self-perfect body. Regina, who was still unaware, thought about it and became a little annoyed. 1 more month. But for a good figure, it's not unbearable. Just as the two finished chatting and were about to go back to canvas for votes, Regina accidentally saw Sharon, the 12th grade math teacher, in the corner of the street. At this time, a black man in his 30s stood opposite Sharon. He was dressed sloppily and looked like a homeless person. Labels such as black and homeless mean crime and trouble. Look over there. Regina thought she had discovered the math teacher's secret and seemed a little excited. Katie heard the voice and followed the direction of the other party's finger. She saw the scene in the corner and said in surprise, "Why is the teacher there?" Because she had lived in Africa, Katie didn't have much prejudice against black people. She was surprised only because Sharon, a math teacher in her 30s, looked like a capable and strong woman in school, and it was really hard to imagine what she was like in real life. At this time, Sharon, who was in the corner, took out a handful of change and handed it to the black man opposite. The two said a few more words before parting. "Tell me, is teacher Sharon buying contraband?" Regina saw this and made malicious guesses. In school, teacher Sharon's personality was a little arrogant, which happened to conflict with Regina's strong personality. Regina, who thought she had caught the other party's pigtail, would definitely make another note of the other party in her notebook when she returned. At this moment, Sharon, who was partying with the black man, turned around and found Katie and the others. She smiled and shouted, "Katie, come here, I have something to discuss with you." Katie was still thinking about how to persuade Regina not to spread Sharon's gossip everywhere. Before Katie could make up her mind, Regina beside her pushed her and told her, "Go quickly, it would be best to get some more explosive news from Sharon." Katie, who was forced to come to the teacher, had something hidden in her heart and seemed a little absent-minded. On the other side, teacher Sharon went straight to the point. "Katie, the rules of the College Cup Mathematical Olympiad have been revised this year. Each participating school needs to have a female team member. You have a high talent for mathematics, and I want you to join the Mathematical Olympiad team. After you get a ranking, it will be a bonus for you to go to college. You can consider it." Katie was still a little out of shape, and she agreed in a daze. "Okay, I'll consider it." Teacher Sharon thought that her student was hesitant because she was not confident, so she comforted her. "It's okay, you can think about it slowly. The Mathematical Olympiad will be at the end of the year, and we still have a lot of time. Moreover, this year I also plan to pick some good seedlings in the 11th grade to join the Mathematical Olympiad team." After finishing her thoughts, teacher Sharon was about to say goodbye to Katie. Wait, Katie was hesitant. "Anything else?" Sharon had plenty of patience for her good student. What did the homeless man say to you just now? Why did you give him money?" Katie finally asked the doubts in her heart. In the 16:9 book and bar, you can see the correct version. "Oh, you mean Danny?" Sharon organized her words and said, "He lives in the same neighborhood as me, and he is not a homeless person. His child was sick recently, and he asked me for help before. Texas is full of rednecks, and people of other skin colors are more or less discriminated against here. Especially for black people who don't look like good people. It is even more difficult to survive here. So that's it." Katie, who had solved her doubts, felt relieved. Then, she promised Sharon that she would think carefully about the Mathematical Olympiad at the end of the year, and then said goodbye to her. Sharon, who didn't know what her student was thinking, shook her head and left the commercial street. Here, Katie, who returned to the cheerleading team, was pulled aside by Janice again. "What did teacher Sharon tell you just now?" Janice looked worried. "Nothing, just about the Mathematical Olympiad," Katie replied. "Didn't you say anything about contraband?" Janice asked. It turned out that after Regina came back, she spread the speculation that teacher Sharon bought contraband to everyone in the cheerleading team. After Janice knew about it, she was not only worried about teacher Sharon, but also worried that Katie would be implicated. After learning from Janice what Regina did, Katie was very angry. How can she say that? Teacher Sharon is actually helping others and doing good things. Then, Katie told her friends in detail about how teacher Sharon helped the residents in the same community. This is difficult to deal with. The rumor has been spread by that bitch Regina, and it may have a very bad impact on teacher Sharon. Janice sighed. It takes only one mouth to spread a rumor, but it takes a lot of effort to refute it. No, I have to explain it clearly to Regina and ask her to clarify it to teacher Sharon. Katie thought of the care the math teacher had given her and decided to do something for her. Moreover, this matter was caused by her. I will go with you. If Regina doesn't explain the matter clearly, I will have to teach her a lesson. Janice rolled up her sleeves, looking for a fight. She had long been fed up with Regina's behavior of talking bad about people behind their backs. Chapter 41 season begins. What, you want me to apologize to the math teacher? Regina tilted her head slightly and looked at Katie and Janice in front of her. Behind her, all the cheerleaders were watching the show, with Regina vaguely as the focus of their positions. Katie had just explained to everyone that the math teacher helped others. However, Regina on the opposite side did not seem to appreciate it. She had no intention of helping Sharon clarify the matter and did not think that there was anything wrong with her spreading rumors. It's okay not to apologize, but you'd better control your people and tell them not to go out and talk nonsense. Otherwise, be careful that I will be rude to you. Janice rolled up her sleeves and fired a map cannon and also threatened Regina by the way. She knew the people in the school cheerleading team very well, and those people were led by Regina. As long as Regina was willing, the rumor that Sharon bought contraband would soon spread widely in the school. They have their mouths. I can't control them. Regina gave a fake smile and continued. Besides, teacher Sharon didn't buy the banned items this time, but that doesn't mean she hasn't bought them before. This secret was told to me by Katie. Before, Katie did betray teacher Sharon in order to deal with Regina. After hearing what Regina said, Janice couldn't believe it. She turned to look at Katie and asked, is what she said true? Punk girl Janice hated the behavior of saying bad things behind people's backs the most. In her impression, Katie was still a simple girl, the same as herself. Sorry Janice, I just said it casually at the time, but I didn't expect her to believe it. Katie hurriedly explained to her friend. So that's it. Janice realized that the problem was actually on her side. Looking at the mocking expressions of Regina and her group, Janice still chose to believe her friend. Forget it, let's go apologize to teacher Sharon and help her clarify the misunderstanding. After that, Janice took Katie and was about to leave. She didn't want to stay here for a second. Wait, Regina called Katie and threatened. Our activity is not over yet. Are you sure you want to leave? Best is rules. Team members must unconditionally cooperate with Queen Bee's actions. If Katie leaves at this time, she will definitely be expelled from the Devil Body team, and of course, she may not be able to keep her status as a cheerleader. Bullshit activity, Janice spat, not giving Queen Bee any face at all, and was about to pull her friend away. But after walking a few steps, Katie slowly broke free from her friend's pull and finally stopped. During this time, Katie experienced the wonderful feeling of being surrounded by people in the Devil Body team. She didn't want to go back to the days when she was a little transparent. I'm afraid even Katie herself didn't realize that she is now more and more like Regina. Janice looked back at Katie, who stopped with a very complicated look in her eyes. Katie felt guilty for a moment and wanted to go over to explain to her friend. But in the end, she still chose to shake her head slightly. Okay, she's not the same as us. Let's go on our own. The more thoughtful Sissy Damien had already noticed some changes in Katie. He was not very surprised and calmly stepped forward to help Janice out. Janice was pulled back, and before leaving, she shouted, Katie, we are no longer friends. Don't come to me again. It will only make me feel sick. After Janice and the others left, Regina looked at Katie, who stayed, and showed a satisfied smile. Very good, Katie, you made the right choice. Who will care about two losers? Katie still felt a little guilty, so she could only smile awkwardly. Come on, Katie, tell me more about Mike. I know you have a special relationship. Regina enthusiastically put her arm around Katie's shoulders. This was the first time that the two had such an intimate behavior. In school, Mike is handsome, strong, and good at studying. He is definitely a potential stock. Originally, Regina wanted to keep the opponent hanging for a while, so that he would come to her on his own initiative. As a result, after several contacts, Regina found that she could not control Mike. Next, with the start of the football season, Mike, as a football player, may become the new star of the school if he performs well. Considering this situation, Regina felt a sense of urgency again. She was eager to catch Mike, this potential stock. Time passed quickly, and it was Monday when the inter-school league began. The summer league adopts the championship system and single elimination mode. The loser of each round is eliminated, and finally a state champion team is produced. According to the location of the school district, the Texas Cup is divided into 4 divisions, and the competition is held at the same time to determine the state's top 8. Melford Public High School's opponent today is St. Martin's Public High School, its old rival last year. Because of the failure in the first round last year, Melford Public High School has a home advantage this time. Today is the day for us to wash away our shame. We will let St. Martin's College know how powerful we are. Melford. We will win at the entrance. Aaron held his breath and gave everyone a pre-match mobilization. He stretched his hand in the middle, and soon everyone's hands came together. 1, 2, 3, we will win. Come on. As Aaron led the way into the field, cheers rang out from the scene. A perfect version of the book in 1619. It has to be said that football is the hottest sport in the United States. There were 2,000 to 3,000 people at the scene for just the first round of the small game. Among them, more than 70% of the people who supported Melford Middle School were residents of the surrounding towns. Mike saw the Cooper family in the crowd, and Grandma Connie was waving her arms wildly. After the entrance, it was time for the cheerleading team to warm up, and Coach George began to assign people. In the end, Mike was left behind. After Coach George and assistant coach Wayne discussed, they agreed that the more experienced Sam should be sent to lead the first game. Mike had no objection to this, but Sam, who got the starting position, looked at him with a glaring look before going on the court. Melford Middle School and St. Martin's College were both weak teams, and the difference in strength was not that big. Last year, St. Martin's was able to beat Melford, which was largely due to luck. As the game started, the two teams of equal strength soon entered a tug-of-war. Both sides kept stopping the ball and organizing secondary attacks. However, the game, which Mike thought was very dull, did not stop the enthusiasm of the audience. At the scene, the cheers for Melford Middle School were still higher than the other. With the huge home advantage, at the end of the first half, the Melford rugby team did not disappoint the enthusiasm of the audience. They scored 3 goals and locked the score at 9:6. In the school level competition, each team can only score more than 10 points in the whole game. So, Melford Middle School scored 9 points in the first half, which was not low in efficiency. Seeing victory in sight, the supporters of Melford on the sidelines were still shouting vigorously during the halftime break. As if to pass on the enthusiasm to every player, even the cheerleaders seemed to work extra hard during the following warm-up period. The situation was very good, and Coach George did not mention letting Mike play again. He was busy cheering up the 11 players who came down. However, the hot state did not last long. The game in the third quarter seemed to be a joke to Melford Middle School. Paying attention to the time at halftime, the 3 coaches of St. Martin's College changed their offensive strategy. They chose a hard-hitting tactic and let strength speak for everything. In the confrontation of hard power, the Melford players seemed to be cursed and were pushed back by their opponents. Sam, who performed bravely in the first half, became a soft egg under the opponent's double team. In a round of secondary offense, Sam was forced into his own end zone by the opponent. Seeing that St. Martin's College was about to score a safety, the audience on the scene also cursed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Second Attack. Defense. Damn it, hold it for me. Coach George lost his usual calmness. At this moment, he waved his baseball cap on his head and shouted loudly to Captain Aaron on the field. Melford High School, which was supposed to be the offensive side, was forced to become the defensive side. If the opponent scored a goal in this round, it would be a humiliation. Not only would it be a big blow to morale, but it is also likely that the Melford team would be nailed on the pillar of shame because of this goal. The pressure at this moment was completely on quarterback Aaron. While he was fighting against the opponent's quarterback, He was observing the opportunity to counterattack. Finally, he found George behind the crowd. As a wide receiver, George's current position is very spiritual. As long as the quarterback can make a successful long pass, the situation on the field can be reversed immediately. Any qualified quarterback will not miss such a good opportunity. Give me the ball. Aaron found an opportunity to get rid of the opponent's entanglement and shouted loudly to Sam, who was struggling to protect the football. Sam had been pushed into his own 5-yard line by his opponent. The best way to deal with it was to hand the ball back to his own quarterback. However, Sam seemed to have lost his temper in the confrontation with his opponent. At this time, he was thinking about knocking down his opponent, killing his way out, and completing the feat of saving the world. Football is like a rehearsal of attacking a stronghold. Who doesn't have a heroic dream? However, Sam misjudged his own strength and missed the opportunity created by Aaron. He didn't react until he was squeezed to his own end zone and prepared to pass the ball. The opportunity was fleeting. Just as Sam was thinking about how to pass the ball, two opponents attacked from the front and back and poked the football to the ground. Seeing that the football was about to roll into his own end zone, Aaron rushed over and pressed the ball tightly under his body outside the end zone line. Damn it. With the shouting and cursing outside the field, the players on both sides of the field had a grand stacking game about the ownership of the football. Beep. The referee blew the whistle for a dead ball, indicating that Melford Middle School had another second attack opportunity. At this time, the situation of Melford Middle School on the field was very similar to that of the Longhorns, who punted in the third quarter. To be honest, the situation might be even worse. Seeing this, Coach George quickly used a timeout opportunity. He pointed at Sam, who was in a daze at the end zone line, and signaled him to leave the field. Punter, get ready. Assistant Coach Wayne called out the team's punt loudly. Generally speaking, if 3 attacks are fruitless, punting is the best choice. Go to the side and calm down. Coach George did not scold Sam, who was leaving the field. It was just that he could not hide the disappointed expression on his face. Sam's previous shot, whether it was a shot or choosing to organize the attack himself, was understandable. But he hesitated at the critical moment, which was tantamount to committing a crime. His actions also betrayed the trust of his coach and teammates. Sam calmed down and realized his mistake. He took off his helmet in annoyance and sat on the bench. After dealing with Sam, Coach George turned around and saw the punter who was about to play. Suddenly, Sheldon's comment on punting flashed through his mind. In a flash of inspiration, he had a crazy idea. Wait. Coach George called the punter who was about to play and then shouted, "Mike, come here." Mike, who had been prepared for a long time, put on a protective helmet and came to the sidelines. "Do you think we should punt?" Coach George asked. "I have confidence in myself." Mike's voice was a little dull while wearing a helmet. Again, any tactical choice must be based on the strength of the players. Mike did not seem to answer the coach's question, but the number 21 jersey he was wearing was the best answer. The job of a running back is to attack, and attack again. Very good, go ahead. Coach George patted Mike on the shoulder and encouraged him, "Go and send that damn football to the other side's end zone." The timeout was only 2 minutes, so Coach George could not make more arrangements. He could only choose to trust his players. Mike made an okay gesture and stepped into the field amid cheers. Don't say it, this feeling of being the center of attention is really good. Unlike the uninformed audience, Assistant Coach Wayne looked at Mike's back and complained to George, "You are crazy, we still have a lot of time. The best choice now is to punt." Generally speaking, after the exchange of the ball in the third quarter, Melford Middle School can at least have one round of 4 offensive opportunities in the fourth quarter. In the long run, Melford Middle School still has a slight advantage. I'm crazy. Coach George shook his head without further explanation. He is in a very complicated mood now. The decision he made before was just a rush. At this time, he was feeling empty and uncertain. The American football field is called a barbecue grill. It is 120 yards long and 75 yards wide, about 70 meters. The distance between the 2 goals is 110 yards, about 100 meters. Check out the correct version on the 16:9 book forum. The field is marked with a dotted line every 5 yards and a solid line every 10 yards, which is also the origin of the barbecue grill's nickname. Mike stepped on the sideline and trotted to his end zone. "Why is it you? Where is the punter?" Aaron asked in surprise when he saw Mike coming. "We won't punt this round. Let's prepare for the second attack," Mike said and stopped in front of the end zone. "Oh, huh." Aaron realized that Mike was on the offensive end. This situation had never happened before. Aaron glanced at the coaching area and saw that the two coaches had no more instructions. So he assumed that this round of second attack was arranged by the coach. As a quarterback, Aaron immediately made a few gestures to the players and organized the second attack. When Melford Middle School formed a straight attack formation, the audience realized that this was not a punt. They had never seen such a response before, and there was a burst of scolding in the audience. The deeper the love, the more severe the criticism. "Damn it, why didn't you punt? Is the coach crazy?" Sam's father Greet in the audience shouted angrily. In his scolding, he even attributed his son's previous mistakes to the coach. And next to him, not far away, was the Cooper family. "Maybe punting is not the best choice," Mary retorted. Greet's words just now denied both Sheldon and George. As a relative, Mary naturally couldn't stand it. "What do you know? You should punt now to maintain your advantage." Greet seemed to look down on Mary because she was a woman and continued, "Even if you want to attack again, you should let Sam go. I don't believe that number 21. Compared with Sam's burly body, Mike does look smaller. What's more, Greet has some personal grudges with Mike and there is prejudice." As Gretel kept talking, Grandma Connie recognized him. "I don't think Mike is worse than Sam. How about we make a bet?" Grandma Connie said. Soon, Gretel also recognized Grandma Connie. He said angrily, "How do you bet?" "I bet Mike can score this round." Grandma Connie made a bet. $100. "How about it? Do you dare?" "Deal." Gretel was angry and didn't think much. A small bet was established. Chapter 43 Creating a Miracle. St. Martin's College did not expect that the opponent would still want to attack again at this time. Soon, the quarterback of St. Martin's College also gathered people to form a line formation and confronted the opponent. This behavior obviously looked down on Melford Middle School. Realizing that the opponent was going to have another head-on confrontation, Aaron was also aroused. He whispered, "Mike, I will do my best to entangle the opponent's quarterback later. You just need to run forward. Can you do it?" Aaron, who often conducts confrontation training with him, has the most say in Mike's strength. "Anyway, he will not be worse than Sam." "Understood," Mike responded, but his eyes were looking through the helmet, looking for the attack route. The opponent was originally on the defensive side, but he took an offensive posture. The defensive forwards and linebackers all gathered around their quarterback. This is obviously a formation of 4 different things. After a brief analysis, Mike found that the opponent's formation had weaknesses on both sides. Especially on the right side, that is, the opponent's left side, there was almost no defensive power. Beep. With the whistle, the players of both teams clashed fiercely around the quarterback. Aaron instantly threw the football from his crotch to Mike and joined the confrontation. Now, Mike pretended to break through to the left, and after a fake shot, he twisted his waist to the right sideline, leaned forward, and suddenly started his own speed. "Damn it, stop him." When St. Martin's College found something wrong, only 2 linebackers were able to control the field. Seeing that Mike wanted to steal the chicken, the 2 reacted quickly. They attacked from both sides, as if they were going to knock Mike down on the spot. Looking at the 2 opponents who were bent over and ready to collide, Mike, who had already increased his speed, suddenly jumped up. Amid exclamations, Mike leaped over the heads of the 2 linebackers in a hurdle posture. This kind of difficult action is usually only done by players with explosive physical fitness. Seeing this wonderful moment happen in the high school league, at this moment, all the supporters of Melford outside the field stood up and cheered loudly. "Good boy, that's it." The man holding a long-mounted camera on the sidelines cheered loudly. "If he scores a touchdown in this round, it will definitely be on the top 10 of the week." The man is an employee of a local TV station. He thought that he would be assigned to a small place like Medford, where there would be nothing to report. As a result, number 21 from Melford Middle School gave him a surprise as a dark horse. Another reason for the man's excitement was that this month's performance bonus was settled. At this time, Mike was in a state of extreme speed. He had no time to pay attention to the situation outside the field. There was only the sound of the wind in his ears, accompanied by his own breathing. Geo. 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 After traveling 80 yards, Mike met the opponent's safety guard in front of the opponent's end zone. This is the last line of defense. Mike, who was being chased by someone behind him, knew that if he paused for a moment, he would be entangled by the person who came. He took a quick look at the opponent's safety guard. Judging from his body shape, he was also a speed player. In this case, let's fight. Not every speed player has a balanced physique like Mike. Faster speed means smaller body and more flexible body. The safety on the opposite side was an extremely partial player who gave up strength and only pursued speed. At the extreme speed, Mike had no time to change direction. He bent forward slightly and prepared for the collision. Bang! In the violent collision, the thin body of the safety was knocked 2 or 3 meters away. The most primitive confrontation can make people's hormones soar. Mike was in this state at this time, but he didn't expect that his opponent was so weak that he flew out with a touch. Then, with cheers all the way, Mike drove straight into the game with the football in his arms and completed a round of offensive touchdowns. When Mike excitedly threw the football in the opponent's end zone, George, the wide receiver, just came and wanted to celebrate. Mike. Regina rushed into the field, squeezed George away, and jumped onto Mike. Then, she hugged Mike's helmet and kissed it hard. When the other members of the cheerleading team came over to pull away the excited Regina, a row of eye-catching lipstick marks had been left on Mike's helmet. Then, the cheerleaders and the players who came over cheered around Mike. Yes, Coach George on the sidelines waved his fist vigorously, getting rid of all the anxiety in his heart. 9 points plus 6 points, Melford Middle School almost locked the victory. George, you are right, you won the victory for us. Assistant Coach Wayne also excitedly complimented. Nothing, this is the result of the players' hard work. After enjoying the flattery, George also took up the necessary posture. Look at the correct version in the 16-9 book bar. As a head coach, what can be more worthy of boasting than victory? I knew that I shouldn't have punted. Mike did a good job. On the sidelines, little Sheldon also showed a reserved smile. Please settle the bill. After cheering, Grandma Connie found Gretel. Compared with the excitement around him, Gretel was a little depressed at the moment, but he still took out $100 and handed it to Grandma Connie. However, he looked at number 21 on the field and Coach George on the sidelines with a rather unfriendly look. Amidst the cheers, the referee on the field stopped the Melford Middle School students who were still celebrating and then expelled the cheerleaders from the field. The third quarter was about to end, and Melford Middle School had another chance to score. Retreating 5 yards away from the opponent's end zone, Aaron held the football and asked, Mike, do you want to shoot or score another touchdown? Mike's wonderful performance before had completely conquered Aaron, the captain of the team. Additional attack, 1 point for a shot, 2 points for a second touchdown. Cooperate well, let's score another touchdown, Mike said firmly. Compared with a few minutes ago, the people of Melford Middle School were more motivated. And Mike himself also picked up a lot of attribute light balls from the cheering players before. After a few times, Mike's physical fitness has increased from 146 before the game to 151. Good. Aaron also felt refreshed. He once again commanded the players and prepared for the confrontation. Beep. The football was in Mike's hands again. This time, he didn't play tricks, but rushed into the crowd with a football in his arms and successfully scored another touchdown with a tough attitude. Melford Middle School added 2 more points. This attack also suppressed the morale of St. Martin's College. In sports competitions, morale is the soul of a team. After the end of the third quarter, 2 minutes later, St. Martin's College seemed to have not recovered from the touchdown in the previous round. After the offense and defense switched, before the end of the fourth quarter, Mike used another opportunity to show his physical fitness and help Melford Middle School win a big score. The final score of the two teams was locked at 24-9. After reaching a physical fitness of 150, Mike could clearly feel that his strength was much higher than that of the others on the field. Then, after leaving the field, Mike got a few football experience balls from Coach George, which made his football strength reach the professional level of level 3. In the school league, Mike's football level is enough for him to bully the weak. Chapter 44 Interview. You're lucky this year. You found such a great guy. During the handshake between the coaches, the head coach of St. Martin's College looked very unconvinced, and his tone was a bit sour. Anyone can see that it would be hard to say whether Melford Middle School would win or lose without the number 21. However, there is no need to talk too much about competitive games. Winning is winning. Coach George's trust in Mike and sending him to the court at a critical moment is also a manifestation of strength. At this moment, Coach George had a moderate smile on his face, and he was very confident in his victory. I wish you good luck in the next game, and it would be best if you can make it to the top 8 of the state. The head coach of St. Martin's College had a lot of things to say to George, but he felt very irritated when he saw the annoying smile on the other side's face, so he could only reluctantly send his blessing. Compared with private middle schools, public middle schools have a big gap in both hardware and software. It's like the difference between an amateur team and a professional team. A public middle school can make it to the top 8 of the state is already the best blessing. As for letting Melford Middle School win the state championship, that is something that even Coach George dare not think about. Meanwhile, the Summer League of St. Martin's College this year has just begun, and it has already ended. If the Melford Middle School football team can advance all the way and finally enter the state quarterfinals, then St. Martin's College can also say that it lost to the quarterfinals, which sounds better. Thank you for your blessing. Coach George smiled and shook hands with the other team's head coach. At this point, the whole game is officially over and the loser is out. The Melford Middle School football players, including the substitutes, returned to the center of the field. 1, 2, 3. Everyone put their hands together. Unity, struggle, hard work, and honor brought the whole team together. Captain Aaron shouted, "Melford must win." At this moment, victory is the best gift. Amid the cheers, George and Aaron looked at each other, and then the two of them tacitly lifted Mike, the biggest contributor, on the left and right. Then, the excited players pushed Mike into the air and paraded around the field. The cheerleaders, led by Regina, sprayed streamers and colored smoke on the sidelines. Outside the stadium, the supporters of the local team cheered again without hesitation. This kind of enthusiastic and crazy scene can only be seen at home. After the initial discomfort, Mike enjoyed the feeling of being noticed. He took off his helmet, waved his hands, and shared the joy of victory with the people outside the stadium. 10 minutes later, he got out of the clutches of the players while tidying up his team uniform and walked out of the stadium. On the sidelines, little Sheldon and Grandma Connie and their group also stood beside Coach George, waiting for Mike to arrive. "Excuse me, can we ask you a few questions?" The middle-aged man carrying a camera blocked Mike's way. "By the way, let me introduce myself. I'm Jack, a reporter from the state TV station. Your performance today is great. It really opened my eyes." Jack, with a Mediterranean hairstyle and a stubble on his lips, looked like a decadent middle-aged man. However, his expression at this time was very excited. Mike did not reject the other party's enthusiasm. He first waved to the Cooper family, greeted them, then retracted his gaze and said, "My name is Mike. Nice to meet you. What do you want to know?" As he spoke, Mike put his sweaty hair back, revealing his delicate features. "That's it." Jack's eyes lit up, raised the camera, and took several close-ups of Mike's face. The boy's bright and confident smile was more dazzling than the midday sun. It must be said that Jack looks sloppy, but he has a good eye for discovering beauty. After taking a few sets of photos, he said excitedly, "Mike, believe me, your image will surely charm countless girls when it appears on TV." For the enthusiasm of the middle-aged man, Mike could only laugh awkwardly but politely twice, without responding. Jack seemed to realize that he was too enthusiastic. He calmed down and returned to the appearance of a professional reporter. "Okay, Mike. Next, I will ask you a few small questions. If you feel it is inconvenient, it doesn't matter if you don't answer. Seeing that the other party had returned to normal, Mike nodded. First question. Jack controlled the camera angle and asked, "What were you thinking about during the second attack at the end of the third quarter?" "No special thoughts. I just wanted to help the team score." Mike smiled and continued, "That attack was arranged by the coach. I just need to do it according to the plan. Of course, I also have to thank my teammates for their help in the end. Maybe there are many people who can talk freely in private, but they always feel awkward in front of the camera." Mike also performed well in the interview. A perfect version of the book in 1619. Jack looked at Mike's natural performance in the camera, nodded with satisfaction, and continued to ask, "Second question, how long did you train to have such excellent personal strength now?" "Well, about half a year." Mike was not lying, and 2 months were also included in the half year. For ordinary people, physical training is a hard and long process, and every bit of sweat is a reward. Mike is different from ordinary people. He is a cheating player. Half a year? You are really a genius. Jack was amazed at Mike's talent. Before Jack continued to praise, a blonde beauty appeared in the camera. "Hi, Mike." Regina greeted Mike enthusiastically, and then said to Jack in a familiar way, "Are you a reporter from the local station?" "I know Mike very well. If you want to know anything, you can ask me." "Oh, Oklahoma." Jack seemed a little reserved in front of a beauty of Regina's level. "By the way, I just saw you taking pictures of Mike. Can you take 2 more pictures for us?" Regina leaned on Mike, looking very intimate, and not at all shy. Jack was disrupted by her rhythm, and could only nod in agreement. Regina is a very charming girl, and she is born with a sense of camera. In the picture, she and the handsome Mike looked like a pair of golden boy and jade girl. In the following time, Regina took the initiative to praise Mike's performance in school, and finally promoted her devil body group. "Mike, remember to watch the state TV channel on Friday." After a round of interviews, Jack hurriedly greeted Mike, and fled from the school with the camera in his arms. Regina, who had satisfied her desire to show off, looked at the other person's back and praised him. "This reporter is quite nice." Mike mourned for 3 seconds for Jack, who had been tortured by Regina for half an hour. Then he shook his head, and was about to walk towards the Cooper family. "Wait." Regina stopped Mike and invited him. "To celebrate the team's victory, I decided to hold a party. You, the hero, can't be absent. Mike's performance today will definitely make him a star in the school." Regina, who had a sense of urgency, also decided to take the initiative. Chapter 45 Party. Just when Regina sent out the invitation, Amy came over after finding her daughter. Today, Amy was wearing a pink slimming outfit, carrying a branded bag, and wearing a pair of exaggerated sunglasses. She looked like a lady. "Look who this is. Our number 21. I love you so much." She took off her sunglasses and looked at Mike with a surprised look on her face. Compared with Regina, Amy had a more mature charm. Then, she asked her daughter ambiguously, "Is he your boyfriend?" Mom. Regina glanced at Mike and did not deny it. She continued, "I want to hold a party at home and invite the football players and cheerleaders to come over and have fun. It's a good idea. It's been a long time since my home was lively." Amy immediately expressed her support. Soon, the football players and cheerleaders also received Regina's invitation to the party. The young people on the field cheered again, especially for a marginal person like George, who had never participated in such a high-end party. The girls in the cheerleading team were all good looking. Just thinking about being able to communicate with so many beautiful girls in private is enough to make George, who is full of testosterone, happy for a long time. The next round of the football team will be held next Monday. Therefore, the players have enough time to relax. On the sidelines, Mike explained the situation to Coach George and said goodbye to the Cooper family. "Mike, don't waste time." The excited George urged, "That's Regina's party. I don't want to be late." It was only noon, and there was no such thing as being late. George was so active, probably because he wanted to get there first to see if he could pick up a beautiful girl. He had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Seeing George's eager look, Mike smiled and shook his head, then waved to the Cooper family and prepared to leave. "Wait." Grandma Connie came to Mike, quietly stuffed 3 small umbrellas into his hands, and joked, Safety first. It doesn't matter if you don't come back tonight. As she said that, she also raised her eyebrows to Mike, and the meaning was self-evident. Mike felt a little embarrassed holding the small umbrella. He would rather buy a box himself. But in the end, he still put the small umbrella in his pocket and walked to the locker room with George. Looking at Mike's leaving back, the sharp-eyed little Sheldon asked curiously, "Grandma, what did you give Mike just now? Why didn't he come back at night?" "Oh, little Kiki." Grandma Connie touched little Sheldon's head and said mysteriously, "You are still young. Wait a few years. Grandma will tell you." As she said, Grandma Connie blinked her eyes and showed a smile that only adults can understand. Mom, knowing that little Sheldon is very curious, Mary quickly spoke out to stop the conversation in order to prevent Grandma Connie from saying something inappropriate for children. On the other side, Mike simply washed himself, changed into a comfortable white t-shirt, and then put the small umbrella close to his body in the back pocket of his jeans. Then, he walked out of the locker room with George, who had been prepared long ago. After changing and washing, little George put on a football uniform to attract attention at the party. After all, who can refuse a football player on this special day? But when little George saw Mike, who was still fresh and handsome after a simple cleanup, he could only beg sourly, "Please stay away from me at the party later." Although little George is not bad looking, compared with a handsome Mike, he can only be regarded as a foil. Mike, who understood the other party's thoughts, did not spoil the fun, and smiled and made an okay gesture. The two came to the door and saw the eye-catching pink sports car at a glance. "Mike, get up quickly." Regina turned sideways and greeted Mike enthusiastically. Seeing this, Katie and Karen in the back seat of the four-seater sports car also squeezed out a seat for Mike. As for the roadside, little George, who was wearing a team uniform, was selectively ignored by the four beauties with devilish figures. "Go, Mike. See you at the party later," little George said with a generous look. "Okay, see you later." To avoid embarrassment, Mike did not say much. Luxury cars, beauties, and handsome men sped away amid the roar. On the other side, Captain Aaron, who was driving his own pickup truck, saw little George on the roadside. He stopped the car and waved. "Little George, do you want a ride?" "Of course." Music, colorful lights, cocktails, and various special snacks. Amy, who likes the hustle and bustle, decorated the second floor of the villa as a party. With the clinking of glasses, the members of the football team also used their skills to attract the beautifully dressed cheerleaders on the field. In Regina's room, isolated from the noise outside, the pink atmosphere revealed an ambiguous atmosphere. Looking at Regina, who was wearing a small sling and exuding charm, made Mike feel itchy. A perfect version of the book in 1619. With his initiative, the war started soon. Just at this moment, with a click, Amy pushed the door open with two special cocktails in her hands. "I'll bring you some drinks." Amy put the cocktail on the small table. She had no intention of avoiding the conversation. Instead, she suggested with interest, "You guys continue. Don't worry about me." The three of them looked at each other. Even Regina couldn't handle this awkward situation. She covered herself with a blanket and said angrily, "How did you get in?" In order not to be disturbed, Regina made sure she had closed the door before. Amy smiled and shook the keychain in her hand. She said with concern, "Jenna, this is your first time. If you don't understand, you can ask your mother." Then, she glanced at Mike's strong chest, and her eyes gradually became hot. Regina covered her face in shame and said angrily, "Get out." "Okay." Amy shrugged and walked towards the door with regret. When she arrived at the door, she turned around and gave Mike a wink. "If you need anything, call me anytime." After the door was closed again, the room was filled with whispers again. "Not yet." When Mike took out the umbrella, Regina resisted and then asked, "Mike, are we in a relationship now?" In fact, Regina didn't think of giving herself away completely this time. She just wanted to give Mike some sweetness. Then, confirm the relationship between the two so that she can control the other party in the future. This time, the intimate contact was more like a transaction. Mike, whose interest was interrupted again, cleared his mind. He asked himself if he could give up the whole forest for a big tree. Moreover, the strong Regina was not the best candidate for a girlfriend. What do you mean? Seeing that the other party did not respond immediately, Regina, who felt that she was at a disadvantage, suddenly became angry again. While pushing Mike out, she shouted like crazy, "Get out, this kind of thing originally requires both consent." Since the other party is unwilling, Mike doesn't want to force himself. Whoever wants to be a dog licker can be a dog licker. Mike put on his clothes and pushed the door open. Asshole. Scumbag. Seeing the other party leave without any reluctance, Regina felt disappointed and even angrier. Her plan this time was a failure. After cursing, Regina still felt unsatisfied. She got up and took out a notebook from the cabinet and wrote a whole page of bad things about Mike. Chapter 46 Critical Hit 3-piece set. In the hall, the deafening music and the gorgeous lights made the atmosphere seem a little unreal. In the center of the venue, members of the rugby team were performing funny dances and handstands in order to attract the attention of the girls. In the corner, George cleverly pulled a girl with a relatively ordinary appearance wearing a cheerleading uniform and talked about today's game. As the biggest contributor to today's victory, Mike was watched from all directions. As soon as he appeared in the hall, many people knew that Mike's excellent performance on the court today might make him a celebrity in the school or even in the town. Which girl wouldn't want to have such a handsome and strong blue chip stock? Before, when Mike arrived at the party, he was pulled into the room by Regina and didn't meet many people here. Now seeing Mike appear alone, many girls felt that the opportunity had come. Mike Captain Aaron came over before the girls and gave Mike a bottle of beer. As the captain of the team, Aaron's earnest move showed his gratitude and recognition for Mike. Then, seeing the girls' eager eyes to eat Mike, Aaron said tactfully, "You are the protagonist today. Go and enjoy this moment." In a way, Aaron is a qualified captain. He cares more about the team's victory or defeat, and he will not interfere too much with the players' private lives. This is exactly what Mike wants. Since he brought the small umbrella out today, he has no intention of taking them back. Regina has become a thing of the past and has been forgotten by Mike. At this moment, he has found two more targets, Katie, who was drinking in the corner, and Karen in the crowd. Before, the two girls saw Mike being pulled away by Regina and thought that there was no chance today, but who knew that things would take a turn for the better. Katie, who drank several cocktails, had a rosy face. Seeing Mike appear again, she could no longer sit still. On the other side, Karen whispered to Gretchen beside her, "Help me stop Katie, I have something to discuss with Mike." As a member of the same group of devilish figures, Gretchen knew what her sisters were thinking. She said incredulously, "Are you crazy? Do you want to betray Regina? Don't say that. I'm not planning to take Mike away. I'm just trying it out in advance." Karen didn't hide it. She just coveted Mike's body. Then, she pretended to threaten, "Gretchen, don't think I don't know that you are also secretly paying attention to Mike in private. You don't want Regina to know about this." Even Gretchen, who usually behaves indifferently, is not immune to being as handsome as Mike. Moreover, everyone has a desire for beauty, not just men. Gretchen, who was in adolescence, was affected by hormones in her body and usually had some fantasies. At this time, her little secret was revealed by her bestie, and she rarely had an embarrassed expression on her face. "Don't worry, I'll create an opportunity for you after I get a taste of the sweetness," Karen suggested with a sly smile, and then continued to tempt. "Of course, this will be our common secret at that time. As long as we don't say it, Regina will definitely not find out." Gretchen didn't expect her bestie to say such a bold thing, but thinking of that exciting scene, Gretchen's ears turned red. Gretchen, who has always been a good girl, also has a wild side in her heart. "Don't hesitate, go quickly. If Katie gets Mike first, she won't be as generous as me," Karen said, pushing Gretchen forward. While the two were planning, Katie was almost in front of Mike. Gretchen was tempted by Karen, and she felt a pleasure of breaking through the shackles in her heart, and her body was more honest than her consciousness. She came to Katie and grabbed her arm. "Katie, can you talk to me?" Katie wanted to break free, but she had just drunk alcohol and couldn't do anything, so she was pulled aside by Gretchen. Karen, who came later, gave Mike a wink and invited him. "Mike, it's too stuffy here. Do you want to go out for a walk?" While talking, Karen deliberately licked her lips, and the teasing was very obvious. Mike, who had seen the deep friendship between best friends, didn't care who would win in the end between Katie and Karen. He smiled and declined the hints of other girls in the cheerleading team, and left the hall with Karen's back. Karen, who was walking in front, had fair skin and beautiful looks, and her figure was already domineering. At this moment, she had gathered the three element, stockings, short skirts, and double ponytails. Not long after, under the leadership of Karen, the two came to the basement of the villa. This is where Amy's family stored wine, but there was also a set of sofas next to it for rest. Mike estimated that this should be one of the secret bases of the devil figure group. What would you like to drink? Karen bent down and searched for wine in the wine cabinet at the door. From the side, the exquisite curves and huge European bubbles were in full view. Mike gently locked the door and then slowly approached Karen from behind. A perfect version of the book on 16 to 9. Karen felt a little shy when she felt something strange behind her, but she turned around and hugged Mike's neck. More than an hour later, the battle ended. The demon body characteristic that Mike picked up was a black ball of light, while this weather forecast characteristic was light blue. After crushing the ball of light, Mike felt that he had the ability to predict the weather. Karen, do you have the ability to predict the weather? Mike asked curiously. How do you know? Karen turned over, lay flat on the sofa, stroked up AO and said lazily, I feel that I have the ability to predict the weather, but I haven't told anyone. Mike didn't answer, but continued to ask, is your probability of predicting the weather accurate? 1 or 2 times out of 10 is accurate. Karen said indifferently, I always thought it was my illusion. Is that so? Mike felt that this weather prediction ability was a bit useless compared to the demon body. However, it is better to have something than nothing, and you never know when you will need it. Another half an hour later, Mike stroked Karen's blonde hair and said, shall I take you home? Karen, who had experienced this kind of battle for the first time, looked no different from usual, but her physical strength had not yet recovered. No, you go first. I'll go upstairs to see the situation. After the madness, Karen now felt a little guilty. After all, the title of Queen Bee was still on top. Okay. After feeling comfortable, Mike didn't want to go back to the second floor. Watching Karen leave, Mike sighed that she was a good girl. So, he made up his mind that, if he had the chance, he must let her taste more sweetness. Chapter 47 George's Resentment. When Mike returned home, he saw George setting up tables, chairs, and benches in his yard. Seeing Mike passing by, George put down his work and ran to the door. Mike, did you and Regina break up? What? Mike stopped and asked. George thought for a moment and said, not long after you left the hall, Regina came out angrily and announced the end of the party. I think someone must have offended her. Logically speaking, it was still early and the class reunion should not end so quickly. Well, Regina and I should be considered to have broken up. Mike shook his head and said, I knew it. George looked like I guessed it long ago and continued to gossip. What about you and Karen? George, who was in the corner, also saw Mike and Karen leave one after another. Don't ask about things you shouldn't ask about. Mike said he didn't want to talk about his private life and then turned the tables. How is your relationship with that cheerleader girl going? Don't mention it. George looked depressed. It turned out that the cheerleader was willing to chat with George because she wanted to get news about Mike from him. As for George, he was completely treated as a tool by the other party. Hearing this, Mike didn't know how to comfort the other party, so he could only mourn for George for 3 seconds. You continue to be busy. I'm going to go back and rest. Mike was now sweaty, and he urgently needed to go back and wash up. Go, don't forget to come to the family gathering later, George said. In order to celebrate the victory of the football team, Mary planned to hold a family picnic in her yard. Mike made an okay gesture and went straight back to Grandma Connie's house. In the living room, Grandma Connie was preparing marinated beef. Seeing Mike coming back, her eyes lit up, and she came to greet him. You smell like a woman. It seems that you are already an adult. Grandma Connie smelled Mike and then smiled. That was the kind of gratified expression after seeing her little pig push the cabbage. Mike was still not used to talking about this with Grandma Connie, so he begged helplessly, "I'm going to wash up." "Go ahead, Grandma will take you to eat barbecue later." Grandma Connie didn't bother too much. Soon Mike finished washing up and changed into a loose home short-sleeved shirt again. Then, he was bored in the living room, watching Grandma Connie continue to marinate beef. Texas Secret Barbecue has a unique secret recipe and the preparation process is very complicated. And Grandma Connie looked in a good mood today. She enjoyed the process of making this delicacy very much. "Okay, come and help me get the ingredients. We can set off." After marinating a large portion of beef, Grandma Connie clapped her hands with a sense of accomplishment. Texas Secret Barbecue Recipe, Cooking Experience plus 100. "Here I come." Mike picked up the light ball and carried the beef out. In the small yard of the Cooper family, the barbecue grill was ready. On the simple table next to it, there were various snacks made by Mary. Because today was a special day, Mary also allowed her husband to drink a little beer appropriately. George, who was drinking beer at the table, saw the marinated beef Mike was carrying and immediately came over. "Let me do it." George took the beef and happily began to arrange the barbecue. Authentic Texans have 3 hobbies: Christianity, football, and barbecue. If necessary, the order of these 3 things can be adjusted by yourself. George fell in love with the taste of the secret roast beef made by Grandma Connie 15 years ago. George, who had been busy alone for an hour, cut a small piece of beef from the grill, tasted it, and said intoxicatedly, "This is the taste. It's great." "Okay, George, don't get tired." Mary knew that her husband was in poor health, so she told him and asked little George to help. Soon, the secret barbecue was served on the outdoor table. The freshly grilled beef exuded a unique aroma. "Thank God for giving us food. Amen." After praying, everyone picked up beer or juice and clinked it to celebrate the victory of the football team. Then, everyone began to enjoy the delicious barbecue. George quickly finished his barbecue. While he was happy, he said to Grandma Connie, "Connie, can you tell me the secret recipe of barbecue? I will cook it for you next time." "Well, I'm not too old to move. I'll do this job myself." Grandma Connie rejected her son-in-law's proposal. She enjoyed the feeling of preparing barbecue for her family. "Please, tell me. I'm your son-in-law." George played the emotional card and recounted the hard work and dedication to this family over the years. Seeing George's eagerness, Grandma Connie seemed to be relieved. "Okay, bring me paper and pen. I'll write down the secret recipe." "Great." George jumped up excitedly, ran back to the house, and soon brought paper and pen. A correct version is found in the 16:9 book bar. Grandma Connie smiled and wrote a few strokes on the paper and then handed it to the anxious George. "Keep dreaming, little fat man." Looking at the content on the paper, George's smile slowly solidified. "Why? I'm your son-in-law. You'll give it to me sooner or later." George was angry and aggrieved at the moment. Although he wanted the secret recipe, he wanted to get an attitude from Grandma Connie from this matter, an attitude of recognition for him. But Grandma Connie didn't think so. She still had some concerns about George getting Mary pregnant before they got married. Obviously, Grandma Connie had double standards for her family. So, she deliberately pissed off George and said, "That's not certain. Maybe I'll give the secret recipe to Mike in the end." George was really angry. He sat down on the stool and drank in silence. Mary couldn't bear to see her husband's appearance, so she persuaded him. "Mom, don't tease George. Give him the secret recipe. Please." "Okay, okay." Grandma Connie picked up the pen and paper again with an expression of "I can't do anything with you." Under George's expectant gaze again, Grandma Connie wrote down a long list of ingredients on the paper. "You won't lie to me again this time, will you?" George asked uncertainly, holding a piece of paper with dense writing. "Silly boy, how could I lie to you?" Grandma Connie said with a smile. "Thank you very much." George looked at the recipe carefully and saw that many ingredients on it were not available locally and had to be sold from other places. However, this did not dampen his enthusiasm. He only heard him mutter, "I can go buy the ingredients this weekend and make a good barbecue for you." At this moment, George felt that his mother-in-law valued him and was full of enthusiasm. "Do your best." Grandma Connie encouraged George, stood up and said, "I'm done. You guys take your time." After that, she quickly left the small courtyard of the Cooper family. In fact, the recipe that Grandma Connie gave George was still a fake secret recipe. She was afraid that, if she stayed here any longer, she would laugh when she saw George's silly look. Mike saw some clues and waited for Grandma Connie to leave. He said to Coach George, "Can you show me the secret recipe?" George thought about it and finally handed over the precious secret recipe. Well, tea powder, famous coffee powder, which Holy Spirit root. Mike looked at the outrageous formula and asked, "Didn't you find there's something wrong with this?" "No way." George broke away from his smug mood and felt a deep malice. Chapter 48, Crisis begins. George was too excited to notice it before. When he got the secret recipe again, he saw the mark on it. Beef needs to be selected from veal less than 1 year old, born in September, and slaughtered in May. Of course, there are some other outrageous requirements on the menu. Looking at the secret recipe, George's face became more and more ugly. Finally, he angrily crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it into the garbage, complaining, "Shit, I knew she looked down on me and never treated me as a family member." As the saying goes, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. This time, George was obviously heartbroken. "George, don't be like this. Mom is not that kind of person. She was just joking with you." Mary comforted her husband. "I will discuss it with her again and let her give you the secret recipe." "No, I don't want it." George was angry and continued to complain. "You are a family, don't care about the feelings of an outsider like me. Please, don't say that, George." Mary tried to continue to comfort her husband. At this time, a red mini sports car stopped outside the Cooper family's yard. "Hello, Mary." George Pastor Jeff sat in the co-pilot seat, leaned out half of his body, and greeted with a smile. "What are you eating? I can smell the fragrance from 10 kilometers away." Mary is a Christian. After seeing Pastor Jeff, her expression became a little reserved. She smiled and responded, "We are having a picnic. There is some barbecue here. Do you want to try it?" The religious rules of Christians are very loose. You can eat meat, drink a small amount of alcohol, and even smoke. However, in some areas of Christianity, because smoking is harmful to health, the church will force the rules and prohibit believers from smoking. Of course, the local church, because Pastor Jeff has a gentle temperament, does not have such a rule. "Thank you, no. We just ate in the restaurant." Pastor Jeff declined the invitation. "Oh, really?" Mary said, "That's a pity." Although the Cooper family and Pastor Jeff are neighbors, out of respect for the pastor, Mary rarely disturbs Jeff privately, so the two families do not interact much. At this moment, even if Mary wanted to chat with Pastor Jeff for a while, she couldn't find a topic for a while. The scene suddenly became quiet. According to the situation, Pastor Jeff should have left at this time. However, he kept a smile on his face and watched the Cooper family eat. Just when the atmosphere was about to reach the critical point of embarrassment, Pastor Jeff made small talk. "George, today's football game is great. And Mike and little George, you are all great." "Thank you." George replied uninterested. He is still thinking about the secret recipe of barbecue. Mike also nodded in response, and his attention was no longer on Pastor Jeff, but on the woman in a red dress next to him. This was the first time Mike saw Pastor Jeff's new live-out wife. The woman was wearing a red low-cut dress, and her skin was as white as if there was no blood. Moreover, the woman's enchanting and plump figure was definitely not inferior to Amy. However, compared with her figure, the temperament she exuded gave people a very cold feeling. Facing Mike's gaze, the woman showed a perfect smile. Under the exquisite makeup, the pair of charming eyes were very charming. In all aspects, this woman is outstanding. However, she gives Mike a very bad feeling at the moment. Mike's sixth sense tells him that the last time this dangerous feeling appeared was on Jennifer. In order not to show abnormality, Mike continued to eat with his head down, but the faint smell in his nose made him frown. This smell is hard to describe, just like the rotting smell of a long dead rat in the sewer. On the other side, Pastor Jeff chatted awkwardly for a few more sentences, but still had no intention of leaving. Seeing this, Mary took the initiative to ask, "Pastor Jeff, do you need any help?" Ahem, Pastor Jeff's thoughts were seen through, and he awkwardly adjusted his tie and said, the thing is, the church is going to travel to the suburbs for a picnic for believers this weekend. It's just that Aunt Susan, who is in charge of logistics, has not been in good health recently and may not be able to go. So, Aunt Susan's identity, to put it nicely, is Pastor Jeff's secretary. In fact, she is equivalent to a handyman in the church. The picnic for believers requires her to act as a chef. Mary understood what Pastor Jeff meant. She said with interest, if Susan is really inconvenient, I can go and help. That's great. Pastor Jeff was waiting for this sentence. He smiled and said, don't worry, Mary. You only need to prepare some food on the day. The work is very simple. No problem. Mary guaranteed. I will call my mother. The secret barbecue she makes is delicious, and I guarantee that everyone will be satisfied. The correct version of the book is in the 16-9 book bar. But Mary didn't notice that when she mentioned Grandma Connie and barbecue, George's face became even uglier. Over there, Pastor Jeff had achieved his goal, so he smiled and said goodbye to the Cooper family. Then, he said to his wife, Serena, let's go. Okay. Selena replied, and then looked greedily at Mike, who was lowering his head, and drove away. After the car drove away, George said to Mike excitedly, did you see that woman? She is so beautiful. I feel that she is much more attractive than the girls in school. Pastor Jeff is so lucky. Compared with Pastor Jeff's ordinary appearance, Serena is indeed beautiful. And the big sister with the attributes of a wife is amazingly lethal to a young boy like George. Little George, don't talk about others behind their backs. It's very rude. Mary, a Christian, was immersed in the upcoming church work. When she heard her eldest son's words, she immediately stopped him. Seeing his mother's stern look, George curled his lips and dared not say anything more. Then, Mary, who was still at the family dinner, began to imagine the work in the church. After a while, she hurried back to the room and began to prepare the process of helping on the weekend. Obviously, she attached great importance to the temporary work of the church this time. With Mary's departure, this family dinner also came to an end. With the departure of the children, George was left alone in the small yard, looking at the grill, drinking and dazed. On the way back, Mike was still thinking about the woman in the red dress. Experience told him that this woman was not simple. However, after thinking it over again and again, he decided to observe for a while. If the other party did not threaten him, Mike would not interfere. He knew very well that he was still in the developmental stage and had a bright future. There was no need to get involved in dangerous things so early. After putting the thoughts in his mind aside, Mike pushed open the door of Grandma Connie's house. In the living room, Grandma Connie was lying on the sofa. When she saw Mike coming back, she came over and gossiped. How is it? Is George very depressed after I left? Tell me quickly. It seems that Grandma Connie was deliberately teasing her son-in-law George before. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Betting Training. At the end of the family gathering, Mike had thought about telling George the secret barbecue recipe. However, he realized that the conflict between Grandma Connie and Coach George was not as simple as a recipe. So, Mike decided to come back and ask for Grandma Connie's opinion. George is indeed a little angry with you. After stating the facts, Mike persuaded, you and George are a family. I don't think you need to be so targeted at him. Judging from her previous actions, Grandma Connie's performance this time was indeed a bit excessive. As a family member, George has been working hard and shouldering the burden of the entire family alone over the years. And he has taken good care of the 3 children. From this point of view, he has no credit but hard work. And it is really unnecessary to cause family disharmony for a barbecue secret recipe. I knew that the fool would be angry. Grandma Connie smiled, not realizing the seriousness of the matter. Then, she continued, more than a decade ago, I found that he was very interested in my barbecue secret recipe. But I want him to understand one thing, he can only get my things if I agree. Obviously, Grandma Connie still cares about George, a gangster, who got on the bus first and then paid for the ticket. George got Mary pregnant, and when they got married, they also didn't get Grandma Connie's blessing. Hasn't George asked you about the secret recipe? I think he is very sincere this time. Mike didn't get too entangled in Cooper's family affairs, and he continued his persuasion. No, this is not about a secret recipe. You don't understand. George is a thief. Grandma Connie shook her head and then suggested, how about we make a bet? How to bet? Mike asked. Let's bet. Will George come to steal the secret recipe without my permission this week? Grandma Connie showed a profound expression and said, if George behaves normally this week, I will personally give him the barbecue secret recipe and apologize to him. What do you think? It can be seen that the playful Grandma Connie is very keen on betting. Mike thought about it and considered that, if it was a week, his chances of winning should be very high. So he said, okay, I'll bet with you. It's a deal. Grandma Connie smiled and interrupted, if you lose, tell me how many girlfriends you have had. As she said that, Grandma Connie returned to her usual frivolous appearance. Obviously, she probably heard some rumors about Mike at school from little George. In addition, Mike rarely talked about his personal affairs at home, which aroused Grandma Connie's curiosity. Mike hesitated and wanted to change the bet. In his bones, Mike is a conservative person. He doesn't want to share his personal privacy with others. It's settled. However, Grandma Connie did not give Mike a chance to refuse. After she confirmed the bet, she stood up and walked towards the room. When she reached the door, she suddenly stopped and said, for fairness, you can't tell George about the bet, otherwise you will lose. In the next few days, the school resumed normal classes. Only the football team was given the privilege to train all day. After Monday's game, Mike's outstanding performance really made him a star in the school. Every time after class, many girls from all grades would come to the sidelines to watch him train. There were even more bold girls who would show their love to Mike in front of everyone. As the frequency of this show of love increased, it became an alternative feature of Melford Middle School. But compared to the increase in fame, Mike is a little unhappy now. After a few days of training, he found it difficult to directly obtain physical attributes from his teammates. It seems that everyone has a threshold. Just like little Sheldon, Mike could easily obtain intellectual attributes from him at the beginning. However, slowly, the difficulty of obtaining this attribute became greater and greater. Ding-ling-ling, the class bell rang, and the girls reluctantly left the playground. Mike, who was resting on the sidelines, returned to training as the girls left. At this time, a middle-aged man carrying a camera was walking towards the playground at the school gate. This man was Jack from the local TV station. Today, he shaved off the stubble on his lips, and his Mediterranean hairstyle was specially taken care of. The whole person's mental outlook looked much better. Hi, Jack, you are here again. Coach George greeted Jack enthusiastically when he saw him coming. Except for the game on Monday, this was Jack's second time to come to the school to watch everyone's training this week. I plan to shoot some more materials for Mike. When he becomes a big star in the future, this will be his personal special. Jack smiled and stated his purpose. Obviously, Jack is very optimistic about Mike. He bet all his performance this quarter on him. Coach George did not dislike Jack's behavior. In his opinion, the other party's promotion for Mike is equivalent to promoting the school's football team. After Jack set up the camera, Coach George was very smart and called Mike, who was doing confrontation training on the equipment, over. Then, he looked around the field, skipped Sam, and called Captain Aaron over. Aaron, put on your protective gear and have a confrontation drill with Mike. Coach George said. Dry training on the equipment is not as exciting and beautiful as real life confrontation. Aaron was naked and was treated as a tool by the coach. Coach, I feel a little uncomfortable today. Aaron was a little resistant in his heart after knowing his fate. Since his physical fitness exceeded 150, Mike has been developing in the direction of being a non-human. For ordinary people like Aaron, confrontation training is torture. So much talk, get ready quickly. Coach George saw Aaron's little thoughts and did not give him a chance to refuse. In fact, Coach George also had his own calculations in his mind. He knew that Aaron had a dream of playing professionally. Now there happened to be an opportunity to be on TV. Even if it was as a background board, it would definitely be of great benefit to Aaron's future career path. Remember to be gentle for a while, Aaron whispered to Mike as he passed by. Check out the correct version on the 16:9 book forum. I'll try my best, Mike smiled kindly and put on his helmet. After both of them were ready, Coach George acted as the referee and issued the attack command. Start with the order. Aaron lowered his center of gravity while running and accelerating, stretched his arms forward, trying to hug Mike's waist. He knew that he was no match for Mike. In this confrontation, he did not seek victory, but only hoped to entangle the opponent so that he would not lose so badly. In the eyes of Mike, who has experience in third-level football, Aaron's confrontation was full of loopholes. The moment the two came into contact, Mike pushed away the opponent's hands, twisted his waist sideways, and threw Aaron away with inertia. In this confrontation, Mike used all skills and did not spend much effort. Aaron, don't think too much. Your goal is to knock down the opponent, Coach George preached to Aaron, who had just climbed up. In his opinion, Aaron is good in every way as a captain, except that his personality is too gentle, which means he lacks aggression. This is not a good thing for Aaron, who aims to be a professional. Come on. Let me see your determination, Coach George encouraged. Okay. Aaron also knows his weakness in character. This time, he seems to have drawn strength from the coach's encouragement, and his eyes gradually become firm. Wait a minute, I will do my best, Aaron said again when he passed by Mike. Please do your best too. I want to see how big the gap between me and you is. Seeing the other party's fighting spirit, Mike nodded, indicating that he understood. Start with another order. Aaron put aside his distracting thoughts. He increased his speed and slightly turned his body to face his opponent, a real man's head-on confrontation. However, in Mike's opinion, Aaron, who sought to take the initiative to attack this time, showed more flaws. At the moment when the two collided at high speed, Mike shrank his body and his center of gravity quickly lowered. When his shoulder touched the opponent's abdomen, Mike's core strength was instantly activated, and the whole person suddenly pushed up. OMG, with the exclamations of the team members, Aaron drew a beautiful arc and fell heavily to the ground. On Mike's side, it was equivalent to completing an alternative shoulder throw. This was a perfect display of strength and skills. Are you okay? How do you feel? Mike knew how strong he was and hurried over to help Aaron, who fell to the ground. I'm fine, Aaron smiled bitterly and shook his head. Sometimes the gap between people cannot be made up through hard work. In particular, Mike grew up little by little under Aaron's watch. This also made Aaron feel very powerless. Coach George was also shocked by the intensity of this confrontation. He hurried over to check Aaron and found that he was not injured. Then, he patted Aaron on the shoulder with relief and encouraged, "Good job, go and have a rest." Although Aaron's performance in this round of confrontation was not satisfactory, Coach George saw a momentum in him. This is a good start for Aaron. Chapter 50 Contradiction. After Aaron went to rest, Coach George looked at the players who came to watch the excitement. Obviously, if they want to better promote the Melford Middle School football team, the more materials, the better. However, facing the coach's gaze, the players turned their heads to the side one by one, and soon they dispersed. The players have fully experienced Mike's strength, and they don't want to be the second lucky guy. Coach George was not surprised by the players' reaction. After shaking his head, he looked at Jack, who was fiddling with the camera, and asked, "How is it? Did you shoot all the previous scenes?" Of course. As a sports reporter, how could I miss such a wonderful moment? Jack's face was excited, and then he boasted, "I'm more certain that Mike will become a big man on the football field in the future." Jack's bet on Mike was not wrong. The material he shot of Mike's touchdown in the game had been accepted by the local radio station in the football top 10 of the week. This also earned this down-and-out sports reporter a considerable bonus. So, now Jack is very pleased with Mike, the dark horse. Coach George was very happy with Jack's praise for his players. He smiled, turned to Mike and said, "Okay, you continue to train." Mike nodded and returned to the equipment area to do personal training. The whole afternoon was spent in boring training again. Jack also took a lot of footage of Mike's training. When he saw that the time was almost up, He put away the equipment and reminded Mike to watch the sports channel tonight before leaving. During the inter-school league, the local TV station will organize the highlights of the inter-school league and broadcast them in prime time on Friday night. This also turned the school football game into a national carnival. As Jack left, Coach George told the players about the situation of the opponent next week and told everyone to prepare seriously after returning home. Then, as soon as Coach George announced disbandment, all the players left the playground with cheers. In the hearts of the players, the happy time on the weekend is as important as winning the game. Mike simply washed up and walked out of the locker room. Following the practice of the previous few days, he once again declined the invitations of several girls who were waiting at the door. With Mike's current popularity in school, as long as he wants, he can have an in-depth exchange with a girl by waving his hand. However, after Karen's baptism, Mike has no interest in girls with average looks. However, his indifferent performance is very irritating to George. George said, "Envy, jealousy, and hatred. Isn't that little Sheldon?" The two did not walk far before Mike saw Sheldon's small figure on the side of the road. "What a troublesome guy," George muttered, putting on a poker face. It seemed that he was saying, seeing little Sheldon on campus is an unlucky thing. In the past, after school, little Sheldon would take George's car and go home directly and would not walk home slowly like George and Mike. His abnormal behavior today must have happened. "Hey, Sheldon, what's up?" Mike took the initiative to greet him. "Nothing," little Sheldon replied, trying to make himself look natural. But his pace unconsciously caught up with Mike. Looking at the tangled expression on his face, it was obvious that he was hiding something in his heart. "Okay." Mike smiled and didn't ask any more questions. He knew very well that Sheldon was a proud and arrogant person. Moreover, based on his understanding of Sheldon, if the other party had something in his heart, he would definitely not be able to hold it in for long. Sure enough, after the three of them walked out of the campus, Sheldon struggled for a long time and said, "Mike, do you think George and Mary will get divorced?" "Why?" Mike asked with his head tilted. Mary and George can be regarded as a model couple. Mike couldn't think of any reason for them to get divorced. These past few nights, I often heard George and Mary arguing in the room. Sheldon analyzed seriously. "As far as I know, every couple will go through this stage before getting divorced. Why are they arguing?" Mike continued to ask. "I don't know. Maybe it's because of Grandma's barbecue secret recipe." Sheldon sighed. No matter how smart Sheldon is, he can't understand why Grandma Connie's barbecue secret recipe is so powerful. However, Mike guessed some of the hidden secrets. I'm afraid George was not angry because of a barbecue secret recipe. He felt that his efforts for more than 10 years were not understood and rewarded by his family. After all, humans are emotional animals. After giving, they also want to get some positive feedback to show the value of their existence. And Grandma Connie's barbecue secret recipe can only be regarded as a negative trigger. However, Mike still couldn't believe that George and Mary would get divorced because of this little conflict. So he turned around and asked, "Little George, do you know what George and Mary quarreled about?" "How should I know?" Little George, who had always been an air person, did not notice the change in the atmosphere at home. Then, he continued, "Isn't it normal to quarrel? I often quarrel with some people in the football team. Read the correct version in 1619 book bar." "Shut up, little George." Little Sheldon heard little George's stupid speech and said dissatisfiedly, "George's quarrel with Mary is completely different from yours." Then, little Sheldon tried to explain to little George the difference between the two. Whatever George said indifferently, "If they get divorced, I want to live with George. You are not allowed to choose the same as me." In George's mind, he even began to fantasize about how wonderful it would be without Sheldon in his life in the future. Stop seeing that the situation was not right. Mike stopped the brothers from arguing. He comforted, "Sheldon, you are too sensitive. George and Mary will not get divorced." With Sheldon's doubts, the three walked back to the Cooper's house. With Mike's guidance, Sheldon's mood seemed much better. And every weekend, if there is nothing else, the Cooper family will have a family dinner with Grandma Connie. This is a leisure time for the family. Of course, before the dinner this week, there is another activity, watching the local sports channel. With the arrival of the prime time, the whole family gathered in front of the TV. On the TV, the wonderful scene of Mike crossing the opponent with the ball and then violently knocking the opponent's safety away and successfully scoring a touchdown was being played. Long live Mike. Long live seeing Mike's heroic performance on TV. Missy excitedly ran around the house. Mike, you will be a big star. Grandma Connie also said happily, very proud of Mike. Then everyone else, like a family, congratulated Mike. Among the family, only Coach George did not look very happy at this time. George, don't you want to say something? Mike is your team member. Mary noticed her husband's abnormality and reminded him. Mike, congratulations. Coach George said, covering his face with a magazine. Can't you put the magazine down? Mary was a little angry. No, I don't want to see someone. George said, blocking Grandma Connor's sight with a magazine. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.